POV Ashton Didn't think I'd be going back to Mama's room so quickly. But it's not like it can be helped. I don't know the others well enough for them to call a meeting in my stead. Now, I could call it myself, but I doubt some of the newer Alliance members would show up if the invitation had my name on it. From what I understand, their alliance has around 4 new members. Can't wait to find out what their deal is. By that I mean, I hope they aren't too annoying. And I somehow doubt there are so many princes completely against the succession war. Some, like Camilla, must be looking for something else in that alliance. And I don't really care, as long as it doesn't harm Mama's in any way. And maybe the other original members of the alliance including Kacho and her sister, because they already did a lot to help Mama's. Even if Camilla hasn't exactly been all that present, she still showed up and helped us when it was needed. I reached Mama's room quite quickly. I am still carrying the seed urn, something that the guards took notice of, but since they don't really know how their national treasure looks, they won't stop me. Although, they might tell their captain, and that man definitely knows. And that's exactly what I wanted. I could have just went invisible otherwise. I knocked on the door. The servants are likely going to answer, as this is the door to her living room more than anything. The princes have it nice. Just as expected, a servant opened the door in front of me. He looked quite shocked to see me. I guess they expected me not to be coming back anytime soon? I greeted him politely, breaking him out of his trance by patting him on the shoulder and passing by him. I don't really need a special invitation to enter Mama's room. I lived here for a few days already. The servants didn't really stop me either. Most were just curious about the random clay pot I'm just holding. Mama's bedroom door was closed. I decided to knock. I don't feel like going through the bargain while the female character is changing trope. She answered accordingly, by just opening the door anyway. Thankfully, she was dressed, but she still jumped when seeing me. Hey, Mamas. We have a few things to talk about. But it would be better for you to call a meeting with the other members. I got to the point fast. She seemed a bit discouraged by how straightforward I was, but I'll speak to her properly after the meeting is done. Oh okay. She went back into her room. She managed to close the door into my face. I think it was reflex, but I guess it's better that I don't enter anyway. She should be calling her siblings right now. Still, it will likely take a while. I walked to the living room and sat down on a random couch. Unfortunately, I didn't get to rest for even 2 minutes. As Mama's exited her room almost instantly. She looked a bit flustered for some random reason. I honestly thought she would be a bit against meeting me after the fiasco that was our last meeting. It was mostly my mistake. Expecting her, an innocent girl, to be prepared to sacrifice the lives of others. I called them. Let's go to the meeting room. Well, they call it the meeting room, but it's just Camilla's living room. Sure, showing up early works too, I said with a yawn. She looked a bit concerned for some reason. Did you get much sleep? A mosquito from across the room would have been louder. Not really, I had a lot to do. As you can likely see. I raised the pot that was in my right hand. I was holding it without much care. It may look like a clay pot, but all relics are somewhat more resistant than normal items. Mama's eyes widened when seeing the seed urn in my hands. Did you steal that? She said in a hushed whisper. Of course not. The leader of the Phantom Troop, the one that killed your father, had it, I said with a smile. She looked a bit odd at that last part. I guess she of all people should know that I am the one that actually killed the king. Well, only Kurapika and Mamas know about it. But I'm sure some of the other members could make an educated guess. Like Camilla, who always looks at me weirdly. And even Kacho, who is quite intelligent underneath all of her fake arrogance. I don't know much about Toido though. I haven't really had many exchanges with her, she mainly spoke to Mamas. And I didn't always pay attention. Kurapika is her bodyguard though, so he might have told her some things. I see. You're not hurt are you? Geez, what's with all of the concern? She was never like this when I lived with her. Wait. Does she feel guilty that I needed to clean up after her plan failed? A frustrated sigh couldn't help but leave my mouth, as she looked even more concerned because of it. Mamas, I grabbed her chin and made her look me in the eye. She has a bad habit of staring at the ground when she feels sad. Her eyes widened a bit. The emotions I can pinpoint are shock and expectation. What is this girl thinking about? Why is she closing her eyes? She's redder than a tomato ripe for picking. Goddamn, leaving her like this would be a bit awkward. But I'm not about to go kissing her. At least not smack on the mouth. I leaned in, her lips perked up, but I only kissed her forehead. It's a bit strange really, the height difference is quite large. I kept it for around 2 seconds. When I departed, her eyes were wide open, steam was almost coming out of her ears. 2. I guess she doesn't care about the fact that I didn't kiss her properly. But this was not even why I grabbed her in the first place. Stop blaming yourself for your plan not succeeding, I said, staring into her eyes. But it failed, you had to do all of the work in the end. She tried to look down, but I didn't let her do that. It doesn't matter, you didn't disappoint me, I just gave you too big a task for your first mission, I said with a smile. A tear slid down her cheek. It was mostly my fault. I don't want you blaming yourself for something so simple, I said with a smile. Her hands wrapped around my abdomen, as her head rested a bit on it. I guess she needed a hug. I wasn't expecting this to happen though. I thought she was a bit madder at me than she actually is. This also means her feelings aren't really as simple as I thought at first. I guess I don't have to play at being a righteous guy? Well, in moderation. Can't really kill everyone and expect innocent little mamas to find it neat. She's not as old after all. I let her hug me for a minute or two. She didn't show any signs of moving this entire time. Let's head for the meeting. Wouldn't want your siblings to wait for too long. Unfortunately for her, we still need to go. She reluctantly departed. She pouted a bit but followed me out of the room anyway. Now, to meet with the other princes _POV Ashton_. By the time we reached Camilla's room, there were already a few of the princes present. Namely, the original ones. Camilla, Kacho, Fugetsu Kacho's sister, Oido the mother-in-law. But there was also someone else. A short and chubby girl. She also served as part of the decoy during the party. She won't recognize me at all since I don't look like Killua anymore. But it's quite surprising that she ended up joining the alliance. She looked at us as we entered, first setting her gaze on Mama's and just nodding to her. But then she looked at me, her eyes widened a bit. Ooh. Little Mamas, where have you been hiding this handsome man? A normal hello would have been nice. I should have expected this to happen. I am just as handsome as Killua if not more ego-speaking, and my middle-aged appearance just gives me a certain charm that some girls' daddy issues seem to like. I sighed a bit. Camilla seemed a bit too amused by this situation. Either that or she's thinking of completely different things. Please don't hit on him, said Mamas meekly. Mamas, we don't need to cause a distraction anymore. Why are you acting like a jealous maiden? Well, I guess you are one. Tyson just wiggled her brows a bit looking at the two of us. I rolled my eyes and sighed. It seems none of them has even paid attention to the seed urn. I mean, I covered it with a piece of cloth, but a person with some degree of intelligence should be able to realize what they're looking at, especially if they've seen it before. The other two people I didn't know in the room were another child and a woman. This time a boy dressed in a blue suit. The woman had a complicated hairstyle and long robes. Who I assume is the child's mother. To my surprise, Mamas looked at her and bowed. Good day, mother. Okay. I guess Mamas has a little brother. And this woman is Mamas's biological mother. She responded to her daughter's greeting with a smile and a wave. Then she also looked at me, studying me a bit. I see. So you must be the man that saved my daughter's life when her incompetent bodyguards were sleeping on their duty. I already like this woman. Straightforward people are always something I can appreciate. I smiled at her, a genuine smile. Well, You're not wrong. Glad that's over though. Well, about that. I heard from behind me. It's about time they spoke up. It was getting awkward for me to ignore their presence. I turned around, looking at the door. Two people entered the already open door, which I kinda forgot to close when entering. One of them, the one that just spoke up, is wearing a formal suit. He has a squished nose and curvy short hair. His hair is of the same color as Camilla's. I think this is her biological brother of the same mother, Haukenberg. That's all well and good, but the guy next to him looks a bit odd. He's got a pointy chin, dressed casually unlike the other princes, and his hairstyle is what startled me. Two distinct wavy puffs at each side of his head. It's the first time, in my extremely long life, that I've seen such a hairstyle. I don't know if that's impressive or sad, to be honest. I don't really know this man's name. But he should also be a prince. He's got a guardian Nen beast. And that's usually a telltale sign. What might you mean, classy young man? I said with a smile, as the other people in the room were still thinking of their appearance. And I decided to call him a young man because I feel like it. And classy is because I like his suit. I'm sure I have a few from the same manufacturer. He coughed a bit in his hand hearing my compliment. Well, it seems that the succession war is still happening. The Royal Guard captain has informed me that the war is not only ongoing, but it will also have to be sped up. His tone was quite grave. I could hear quite a few people gasp in the room. Camilla didn't really look bothered. She just smiled all the same. I guess I am a bit like her in that regard. This piece of news doesn't really surprise me. The lack of a ruler would obviously mean that they need to hurry to get a new one. And the first king must have put a few conditions on the seed urn for situations of this nature. The Royal Guard captain should be the only person to know all of the details though. Which is why I didn't bother hiding this shitty vase while looking for Mama's. I basically let him know that I have his toy. He'll have to come and get it soon. What does that mean? We've killed the king. Wasn't he the one enforcing the rules? Mama's really panicked hearing that news. But I didn't really give her the actual reason for killing her father. At least not as fully as I should have. Since I already knew he wouldn't be able to do something too great himself. His death was more because he annoyed me. And that he would have been very against my next actions. I'm afraid that's not the case. Something else is what forces us into this war. Remember the seed urn? Said the man with the unique hairstyle. Everyone looked surprised, only Camilla looked at me for a second. The national treasure is the one that puts the conditions for the succession war, he continued, looking around the room with pride at having come up to that conclusion. At least I think so. Then Mama's eyes widened a bit. This time, it wasn't fear or panic. Just understanding. She looked at me with a glimmer in her eyes. Well then, that solves a few things. I happen to have brought this little flower pot I found in a random room. I uncovered the seed urn. With a large smile on my face. Another series of gasps were heard. Again, Camilla seems to have all of her brain cells working, because she actually paid attention to that suspicious item I had brought with me. That complicates things, said Haukenberg with a strange tone. Now, what exactly does he mean? _POV Ashton _ What does that mean? Asked Mama's, her mind probably wondering the same thing as mine. Well, I can guess what he's worried about. But it would be nice if he could confirm it for me. Dear sister. Right now, the captain of the guards is looking everywhere for the national treasure. If it's found in our possession it will definitely bring trouble. That makes sense. I guess he's worried for everyone's safety. Which is a strange thing to do, especially when you're supposed to be killing them. Lazarus here was also present when I spoke to the captain. He can confirm it. Haukenberg pointed to the man with the odd hairstyle. The man seemed to be put on the spot, only nodding a few times. Besides, we don't really know how the seed urn affects the succession war. Finding that out will be hard too, said Lazarus, looking around the room a bit. so even if they have this in their possession they still don't know what to do with it because they don't know its functions. Besides, the feared captain of the royal guard, the one that failed to protect the king, might come after us to retrieve it. Well, I can work with that. It's actually what I expected, although him talking to the captain isn't really important. If that's all, then it shouldn't be an issue. Even if we don't explicitly know how the seed urn affects the succession war, we can still find out, I said as I put the national treasure on the table. Halkenberg raised an eyebrow. Camilla was still not really affected by whatever is happening in the room. And, at this point, I kind of stopped caring about what's on her mind. But where would we find that information? It's not like there's a written guide, asked Mamas, as her mother also tried her best to think of a way out of this situation. Well, our guide will be coming soon. Until then, why don't we all take a seat and wait for a bit, I said with a smile. Unfortunately, I didn't have much time to make any tea. As the burly captain burst into the room with anger. You! He pointed at me, acting all important and pointing at me. What? I asked with little regard for him. He ran up to me and tried to grab my collar. But I didn't really appreciate that. All of his fingers fell off before he could wrinkle my shirt. I looked at him without any fear. The people in the room were quite shocked about how quickly things escalated. The captain immediately took a step back and clutched his fingerless hand. "Why you insolent?" I interrupted him by taking him by the neck and smashing him face first into the ground. I don't really need him awake for what I'm about to do anyway. I do have a Hotsa that can look into his memories. Well then, just as I told you. Here he is. I grabbed him by the hair and raised him for the princes to see better. Mamas's mother quickly covered her son's eyes, looking at me with scorn. Maybe a little less violent next time? Asked Mamas with a forced smile and a trembling voice. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting that, said Halkenberg. Lazarus just stared at me for a bit. It's certainly efficient. But how are we going to question him? Great question, weird hair Lazarus. Well, about that, I highly recommend anyone easily disgusted to close their eyes. I looked around the room. They looked at me weirdly at first, but after seeing that I was serious they followed my instructions. Most of the women besides Camilla and Oido also closed their eyes. Mamas's mom kept covering her son's eyes. The rest were staring at me expectantly. I coughed a bit in my fist, beating myself on the chest a few times as a worm crawled out my throat. Opening my mouth, I let it out on the captain's shoulder. This is the mind crawler and it can show me everything a person knows after entering their head. I can only summon it by letting it crawl out my throat, which is why I don't normally use it. It doesn't really look like a disgusting worm though, it's more of a small snake with tendrils for teeth and no eyes or nose. It's even got scales. I'd even call it cute. Biased opinion. The people with their eyes open winced as the mind crawler left my mouth and entered the man's ear. It will reach his mind and come out in a minute or two. Conditions are a bit odd for this one, but they work well, so who cares? One of them needs the victim to be a non-user, another asks for the victim to be unconscious. And then there's the throat part, which is also a condition. It also needs to crawl back in to give me the information. So that's nice. That was unexpected, said Halkenberg, looking a bit disturbed by the scene. Lazarus was taking it better, saying something about how neat it looked. Camilla only raised an eyebrow at the scene. I guess she's either good at hiding emotions or she's hard to disturb. Oido looked a bit disgusted, but she didn't say much. Eventually, the mind crawler left the man's ear and entered my mouth, disappearing down my throat. The captain had foam at his mouth and I stopped supporting his head. He fell limply on the ground. I should mention this now, but the victims will lose some cognitive abilities after the mind crawler leaves. It's usually random. Some might lose their taste, they might not feel an arm, others might enter a coma. This ability is quite brutal, but I don't use it often because it leaves an odd taste in my mouth. Even if the crawler is tasteless, it just makes my throat feel stuffy. Suddenly, a flood of information rushed my mind. The crawler will only transfer the things I ask it to transfer. In this way, I learned everything about the succession war. I see. You all can open your eyes now, I said with a cold voice. The conditions for this war are a bit odd. Are you quite finished? Asked Mama's mother, looking at me weirdly. Of course. I now know what the seed urn is important for, I said with a smile. Well, do you mind telling us too? Lazarus is really not one for theatrics. Sure. The clay pot is basically the thing that sets the zone for the war. If a participant leaves that zone they will die. Everyone looked at me with wide eyes. There was also another condition put in place in case the king died before the war was over. This one basically gives you a timer in which you are obligated to finish the war. Some of them are panicking at this point. So, we are still in the war? I didn't expect Mamas to ask such an obvious question. Yep. If the war doesn't end in time, a participant will be randomly chosen by the urn, the rest will die, I said with a smile. Really, the first king must have really hated his family. This is more of a family game than I expected. Oh well, time to do what I know best. Ruin things. _POV Ashton_. Now, I've dealt with condition-based conflicts in the past. And I find that the easiest method to stop such things is to simply get rid of the source of the conditions. Unfortunately, the source happens to also be the national treasure. The princes would not really appreciate it if I just smashed this clay pot. So I need to think of some way to make undo the war. Although, if we are not able to do this in any other way, I will just crush this useless pottery in my palm. I see, said Mamas, probably thinking of ways to escape the war itself. We need a method to offset the conditions. Overriding them is impossible now that the war is happening, but finding a loophole might work, I said while looking around the room. The guardian Nen beasts will also disappear after the seed urn is destroyed, and that would leave Mamas without any protection at all when I am no longer near her. Well, I can just make a Nen beast for her, or let Pito protect her. But Pito isn't intelligent enough to take care of such a task. Making a Nen beast isn't that difficult. The blood-soaked carnival is technically a Nen beast already. But I need one that can permanently protect Mamas. I don't really care as much about the other princes. They can kill each other all they want. Although my opinion might change in the future. Mamas's mental state might deteriorate if she watches her brothers and sisters kill each other. Wait. Since when did I also start caring for her mental state? Oh well, I already decided that I want to protect her. The mental state is just as, if not more, important than physical well-being. The princes and the queens, all seemed to be thinking of ways to get out of this situation. Well, almost all of them. This midget Tyson keeps trying to hit on me every time I blink. At least she's confident. Although she's getting on my nerves. I'd be happy if she was a little less confident. Ashton, when did you find the seed urn? I think everyone got caught up in their own thoughts too quickly. Asked Haukenberg, giving me a questioning look. Well, I guess it was stolen and I now have it. It would obviously arouse suspicion. This morning, a raid was conducted against the Phantom Troop. I started speaking. Oh, the ones that assassinated the king? Asked Lazarus. Yes, I managed to discreetly take this from them after killing their leader, I said with a smile. Haukenberg seemed satisfied with this answer. Well, he had no choice but to be. Mamas was staring daggers at him the entire time. The man uncomfortably fixed his already straightened tie. I guess he's the type that loves his family, huh? I clapped my hands together once, getting everyone's attention once more. I think there isn't much we can do in one meeting. However, I will give you people an alternative. If we cannot find a way to subvert the rules, we will destroy the seed urn. Plain and simple. No. That's the national treasure that the first king left behind. It will bring shame to our empire if we destroy it. Tyson was surprisingly the first one to shoot back. Although most of the princes were firmly against the idea. The queens, however, saw this idea as feasible. I guess they are a bit more mature. Or maybe they really don't wish to see their children kill each other for power. I understand where you're coming from. But even destroying it would be difficult. Even the captain of the royal guards couldn't put a scratch on it. Haukenberg calmly spoke out against my idea. That's not really an issue. I can take care of that, I just need everyone's agreement before doing so. Otherwise, Mamas might get mad at me. So, you think you can break it? Asked Lazarus. I guess defeating the captain in a single move or two wasn't enough for them to believe I can break this vase. I am sure I can. I doubt you'd all allow me to demonstrate that. I have an idea for how to end the war. But it once again relies on me fooling everyone at this table. Let us refrain from doing so right now. If need be, I think that would be our most favorable solution, said Mamas's mom. Camilla finally contributed a bit to the conversation. I say we just break it now. Why delay the inevitable? This girl probably already has ways to win an election. So she's really eager. The others started arguing immediately. About how we cannot be sure, and how there might be another way. The meeting was quickly coming to an end, and we haven't really reached a consensus. Which is quite annoying. I think this concludes our meeting for today. I will keep the seed urn with me, as it is much safer that way. I informed the princes. There wasn't any protest on that matter. Although Lazarus did point out that letting the national treasure in the hands of the man that proposed to destroy it wasn't exactly safe, the others still decided that me keeping it was better. They are likely afraid of any unwanted attention this clay pot may bring them. Tensions are also high in the alliance, as not everyone trusts everyone. Haukenberg, as an example, doesn't seem to trust Camilla, and neither does Tyson. Tyson also seems to dislike Mamas, for reasons unknown jealousy. They debated until the evening, leaving me more bored than before. I stopped listening to them midway. The guard captain didn't wake up. A medical crew was called to carry him away. Kurapika didn't make it to the meeting in the end. I guess he's either cleaning up the mess that our fight made or just contemplating whatever Fei told him about me. I think it's better to let him come to his own conclusions. Getting involved now might make him think that I am manipulating him in some way. I am, but he shouldn't know. I bid farewell to all of the other princes. And I left with Mamas in two, reaching her room and speaking to her in private for a bit. Well, that was a royal mess, I said, trying to lighten things up a bit. She smirked a bit, but she was clearly not in the mood for it, as she went right back to skulking. You know, you won't get much done in one night. Going to sleep might be more productive at this point. Mamas smiled at my proposition. Then she turned red a bit. Will you stay the night? Great, a sleepover. I might come later into the night, but I have something to do right now. I sense something strange is going on. And it's not that far from us. My senses are quite good, but when my instincts act up I listen to them. I quietly covered this entire part of the ship with my N. Sensing the situation in the rooms of every prince. The room of the fourth prince was the most eventful one. A lot of people gathered there, fighting themselves. I wouldn't get involved usually, but I am a bit curious, and that is usually enough reason for me to do anything. _POV narration _ While the alliance was departing from their meeting, their other three siblings were also gathered in a meeting of their own. One much less friendly. The only prince who had died at this point is Sale, which greatly annoyed Serdnik. He detested his siblings, he considered them worse than trash. He wanted to get rid of all of them. He hadn't yet realized that most of his other siblings were banding together to end the war. So, he decided to hasten the war by eliminating two other candidates. One of them being his sister Tugpa, who was also in an alliance with him, and the other being Zhonglei, a prince with great aspirations and the means to achieve them. Taking them out would be profitable for Tsarevnik, as they were both formidable adversaries. Unfortunately, a silent takedown was impossible, as the two princes brought many of their guards to the meeting. Still, Tsarevnik was not one to give up so easily. He spiked the drinks that were given, which remained untouched anyway. Neither of the princes trusted each other. It was obvious that they would be cautious. Unfortunately, Tserdnik wasn't exactly a patient man. After that, he got annoyed and decided to just take them both out swiftly. Unfortunately for him, the bodyguards were prepared for something like this. As the fight raged on, Theta, one of Tserdnik's bodyguards, could only look on in sadness. She had tried her best to kill Tserdnik, but she didn't have any luck. She had also made a grave mistake, teaching Tserdnik how to use Nen, something she now regretted doing. Tserdnik was not a good man. No, he was pure evil, as if his dark desire to kill all of his siblings wasn't a good enough indicator. The prince also considered everyone other than him to be trash. Tserdnik was, by all accounts, his father's reincarnation. Even if none of the others managed to realize that. A homicidal maniac, a madman more than willing to commit fratricide and sororicide. All of that for a throne. Just so he could become a tyrant and make the empire greater. Theta had done anything in her power to slay the monster. But she was helpless at this point. Bound by the man's guardian Nen beast, who protected him at all times. She watched as her friends, the other bodyguards, fought. They fought to kill the other princes that had done nothing wrong. What she didn't expect, however, was the door to swing open, as if kicked, and a handsome middle-aged man to just walk in. "How come I wasn't invited to the party?" he said with a pout. _POV Ashton_. The situation here is really interesting. 3 different princes gathered in one place, all of them trying to kill the other. No alliances, no friends, not familial bond. They are all out for blood. Although 2 of them look a bit more unwilling than the one in front of me. If I am not wrong, this man is named Tserdnik. Camilla warned me about him, saying that he will be fervently against changing the succession laws and ending the war. For all of her quirks and strange behavior, Camilla still gave me information on any person that might become a threat to our plans. Like the guard captain, who I incapacitated already. Now, I need to see what the situation here is. The other princes besides Tserdnik might even join our party. Who are you? Who gave you permission to enter the room of a prince? Great, a random servant decided to speak to me. I tapped my necklace, cold command, and simply said, "Lay down your weapons." My command was heard, this small room making the sound that much more concentrated. Cold command amplifies my voice to a great extent, and against some animals, that might be an attack on its own. Everyone quickly dropped their weapons, their hands forced by my voice. They looked shocked at first. But then someone recognized me. "Why, you're the one from the theater. Great, at least some people actually remember me." I was beginning to think I no longer leave an impression on people. Indeed. So, what seems to be the issue here? I said with a smile. What exactly do you think is happening? This is a war, we are meant to kill each other. Tserdnik was the one to respond, letting his bloodthirsty nature show. I don't appreciate the tone, kid. Be silenced. I could see everyone in the room holding their ears in pain, as my voice ricocheted off the walls and threatened to crush their eardrums. Tserdnik was forced into silence, cold command stopping him from making any sound of protest. Now, I am not really looking for reasons to kill this man, but he seems to want to give me some. His Nen beast looked at me, its eyes wide in anger. I lit off my N, suppressing it instantly as the entire ship shook. Its eyes changed from anger to confusion and then to pure terror. Nen beasts are a Nen construct, but they are sentient. As their name implies, they are beastly in nature. They can act on instincts. And letting off my N is the same as giving it a warning. I may have gone overboard though, as I've alerted every Nen user on the ship that something was going on. It won't really be linked to me though. The range of my N is so great that it would be impossible to pinpoint exactly where the aura came from. Most of the people in this room seem to realize that I was the source of the N, even those that can't really use Nen, as the atmosphere around me changed at about the same time as the ship started shaking. But someone attracted my attention. A woman wearing a black suit and tie. Her brown hair is reaching to her neck, being held in place by a hairband. She has clear eyes and prominent eyelashes. Her eyes widened, not in fear though. It was a different emotion, I can't really pinpoint it now. But I think it's hope or expectation. One of the two. I don't really know this girl's name, but it would only be polite to ask it at this point. I've been staring at her for a few seconds. Now, I'd like to greet everyone in this room. My name is Ashton, I am a simple man, hopefully, we can get along, I said to the silent room. I slowly walked in front of her, much to her surprise, and extended my arm to her. She looked at it for a few seconds, before finally shaking it. My name is Theta. I am one of Sir Serdnik's bodyguards. She seems quite nervous. It's quite obvious that she doesn't fear me, which is what attracted my attention in the first place. Now, let's see what is actually on her mind. _POV Ashton _ The woman looked surprised at the simple greeting. But my next words will likely shock her even more. I clapped my hands. Good. Now, what exactly do you want? Take me for a wish granter, I said with a large smile. The clap broke all of the restraints that cold command put on the people in the room. But no one tried to reach for a weapon, either out of ignorance or fear. My cold eyes studied the woman's facial expression and looked for any signs of fear. She didn't show any. Why, you will grant me a wish? It was more of an exclamation than a question. But I answered it anyway. Yep, you've heard me right. Your courage has piqued my interest. One request, don't make it something stupid, I will kill you. I felt the need to clarify my previous words. She ignored my threat like a champ, not even flinching at it. I made sure to use the calmest tone I had when speaking, to try and rouse more terror out of her, but it didn't do anything. The other people in the room looked confused. Serdnik finally noticed that he had regained his ability to speak. Sir, she happens to be my servant, I am sure her wish will be given to me by default. He went from arrogant to polite at the snap of a finger. But I won't blame him, he likely sees this as a way to kill his siblings or something. Theta looked down, sweating nervously. For some reason, I doubt I am the reason for this. She didn't even blink when looking me in the eyes. Now that the prince speaks up, she suddenly looks at the ground. Prince. Whatever you have to say, say after I've finished my conversation with Theta, will you? I tilted my head a bit, my smile disappearing as I stared at the prince. Theta. Tell him that you wish for everyone in this room besides us to die. His face became twisted as he completely ignored my words. I don't appreciate that. I stared at him. Why exactly am I putting up with this fool? I doubt mamas would even be close to someone like him. I extended my hand towards the prince's chest. His Nen beast tried to stop me. But by the time it even twitched, I had already thrown Serdnik's heart on the ground. I then did the sensible thing, grabbing his face and crushing his skull. I left his body to fall limply on the ground. The last part was more because he was annoying. The room was deadly quiet, everyone stared as if I did something strange. I'd say he was lucky he's Mama's brother, his death wouldn't have been so quick otherwise. Well then, now that this was taken care of, what do you wish, Theta? I asked, but the woman wasn't even looking at me. She stared at the prince's corpse. That was it. I wanted you to kill Serdnik. She fell to her knees as tears started coming out of her eyes. Why is she crying now? I'm not comforting her though, I already have a Mama's on my hands. Don't need a second one. One of Serdnik's bodyguards immediately tried to stab me with his spear. He was behind me, likely hoping to take me by surprise or something. I instantly turned around and grabbed the tip of the spear in between two of my fingers, looking at him with a smile. I chopped the handle of his spear, breaking it in two, then I chopped his neck, breaking it as well. He fell to the ground dejectedly. I wonder why did he gain so much confidence? I think he was mad at me for killing his liege. But still, I wasn't expecting anyone to eat a lion's heart and attack me. I looked at the other bodyguards around me. They were heavily sweating, not one of them decided to follow their friend's footsteps. Bit of a shame, but I guess I've had enough action for a day. I looked at the other two princes. I know their names from Camilla. Zhonglei, the third prince, is a short, bald man with squarish eyes and bags under them. He looks a bit like a monk, but I won't judge. The other is Tuba, the fifth princess. A woman of average height with a square jaw and short hair. She's wearing a suit, a pair of glasses and some earrings. Zhonglei, Tuba, the succession war is swiftly coming to an end. You should join the rest of your siblings and prepare for the new laws that will be set in place. I walked away after saying that. I think it's fair to give them a chance to join. They should be able to tell that most of their siblings are in an alliance due to the lack of action recently. Tserdnik needed to die today. I don't really care about reasons, he stood directly in front of us. At least by Camilla's admission. Of course, I wouldn't take her words for granted. But, from his conduct, impulsiveness and bloodthirsty nature, I do not doubt that he would not want the war to end. Not in this way at least. Theta seemed to be interesting at first. But, I guess she just didn't fear death, or maybe she was determined enough to ignore it? Regardless, that's not something I see every day. Still, I doubt she'll continue her job as a bodyguard after making that wish. Oh well, I felt generous. Especially since today went quite well. Everything from the Phantom Troop to the meeting. It all went as I wanted it to. And that leaves me in an extremely great mood. I guess I'll head back for Mama's room. I did say I would come later in the night though. And this matter took a lot less than I had previously expected. I guess I can go and waste some time at a bar. The lower tiers should be more fun. _POV Ashton_. Well, a week passed by quickly. Only one more to go before we reach my homeland. The princes haven't yet decided what to do with the seed urn. But if this keeps up then I'll have to get rid of it myself. From the memories of the captain, the time limit isn't really all that short. Usually a month. That condition was made specifically to have a king on the throne in emergencies. But now it's making the princes panic greatly. The queens that are part of the alliance both seem to agree to destroy the treasure. On another note, both Zhonglei and Tupa decided to join the alliance. This means that now every prince is working together to find a way out of the succession war. You can guess how pleased Mama's was to see this. I did have to explain to her that her brother Tserdnik was too dangerous to our cause to be kept alive. She didn't really appreciate that. This is why I am currently back to sleeping in my own room. For some reason, she refused to believe that her brother was a bad person. She even went as far as to call me a murderer. She didn't even bother speaking to Zhonglei or Tupa to ask them about the incident. She just blames me instantly. Mama's didn't really hate me for killing Benjamin, who is also her brother. But that might be because she was present when he tried to kill us all. I guessed Tserdnik was good at acting? He likely didn't show much of his murderous desires to his siblings. Well, besides the ones he was actively trying to kill. Well, whatever. I wanted her to have more autonomy anyway. And, I guess she has it now. Especially since she doesn't like me enough for her decisions to be influenced by me. I guess this is kind of what I wanted. Her not believing me is a sign that she no longer relies on me. Maybe she is stressed, maybe her trust in me is built on a shaky foundation. I guess it's a bit harder to befriend people than to kill them. Kurapika has also been avoiding me, which is always nice to see. I certainly didn't go through the trouble of killing my student for you to get some closure. By all means, avoid me more. I mean, I can sugarcoat it all I want, but Killua plotting against me isn't something I find offensive. I wouldn't have killed him and his friends just for that. I now wonder if what I did was a good thing. Killua certainly wasn't a great person, but I am not really one to judge. Some people might ask, on what grounds am I allowed to judge whether or not my student was a good person or scum? Well, it takes one to know one. So I guess I shouldn't have bothered so much to make new friends. It's clear enough that my efforts were in vain. Now, I guess it's time to end the succession war. I still have the shitty clay pot. I can destroy it right now. But I will do it in front of them all, regardless of what they choose to do with it. They don't have any way to find a loophole, the rules are too specific for that. Loopholes only exist when the conditions are vague. And I doubt the first king wanted his descendants to get away from the succession war. I should go and call another meeting. Well, I'll just go to Camilla directly since the meeting happens there anyway. I reached her room and just entered. I don't really care about being polite to her. Not now anyway. Camilla looked a bit surprised to see me, but she quickly suppressed that emotion. "Good day, Ashton. It's great to see you," she said with a smile. Some would call it beautiful, but it's quite obviously fake. She seems to have my problem with not being able to put many emotions in her eyes. I mean, I do that to unnerve people, so it's more of an act than anything. "Hello, Camilla. Would you be a sweetheart and call a meeting for me?" I said with a fake smile of my own. "Of course. I am quite surprised you have come to me for this though." A hand covered her mouth while she spoke. "Doesn't matter all that much. We just need to decide what to do with the seed urn," I said while sitting down on one of her couches. I placed the seed urn on the coffee table in front of me. "Well, there have been quite a few meetings since the last one you attended. Most of us have come to an agreement already." "Well, that's nice detail. I wasn't even invited to the meetings. Even though I basically created this alliance in the first place. Oh well, it doesn't matter much. At least this meeting won't take long. Well, it might not even need to happen. And what might that agreement be? It's easier to just ask. Well, it's our only choice of course. Destroying the seed you before she even finished. I raised my leg and brought my heel down on the seed urn. The clay pot didn't break instantly, but I put quite a bit of nen into my leg. The coffee table underneath it broke instantly, the pot reaching the marble floor, shattering and cracking it in a matter of seconds. And then the seed urn itself cracked and shattered in countless pieces. Camilla just stared with wide eyes as I just walked out of the room. "Have a nice day. Changing the succession laws shouldn't really be something you need my help with." I waved backwards as I left the room and closed the door. After that, I just went back to my room. I don't really feel like sticking around for longer. We've almost reached the waters of the Dark Continent anyway. I want to see just how this ship's defenses fare against the sea monsters around these parts. _POV Ashton_. 5 days quickly passed by, nothing special happened in all of that time. Nobody called me, nobody bothered me. The princes seemed to have lost their Nen beasts, which was to be expected. I also took out Pedo from time to time. I tried to teach her how to speak. But that in itself might take a while. She seems intelligent enough to comprehend words, however. And that means she is ready to learn how to speak them. Other than those brief training sessions, I also spent some time in the lower tiers, studying the situation of the ship. And, to my shock, it had vastly improved. I think that the people that were supposed to protect the king have been moved to protect other important figures. Guests of the empire maybe. That meant that the ship had more personnel to share with the lower tiers. Although it's not really that great in number. And it seems that the guards are taking a lot of liberties with the lower tiers. It's a bit strange to see them cling to what little authority they had and try to take advantage of whoever they could. Their shitty conduct actually started a small-scale riot on the lower floors. It ended with a few civilian arrests. But the one in charge of the court is the Dragon of the Zodiacs, Batabai. And the guy decided to punish the guards instead. And proceeded to watch over all of the guards more strictly. His presence made everyone behave a bit better. It was strange to see how much influence one man can have over the entire situation. But then again, this entire thing is happening because of one man. Beyond Netero. Isaac Netero's son, who is currently still being imprisoned. Kurapika, back when he was still speaking to me, said that there were 3 members of the Zodiacs personally watching over the guy. Beyond is the one that planned everything that's happening right now. He convinced the king of the Kakan Empire to help him out. He secretly planned this trip for over 10 years. And here we are, everyone is sitting in a giant ship, heading for my homeland. A small-scale expedition team might have had some chances to tread the untamed jungles without too many casualties. But this is no small-scale expedition. This is technically migration, and the locals are bound to not take kindly to that. Today, we will finally be in proximity to the land. 2 days left of our journey will be made through monster-infested waters. Let's see how this ship fares. The expedition before this one either got lucky or had powerful Nen users on board. People that could kill off some of the beasts. Or even scare them away using Ren or N. The sea beasts aren't anywhere near as intelligent as the land ones. If they feel something unnatural, like the malicious Nen of a powerful Nen user, they will retreat without a second thought. On another note, I've also thought of what Nen beasts to stick onto Kurapika and Mamas to protect them. I even made one undetectable. Kurapika gets a snake, one that can create illusions and skew the minds of those around it to save the owner/user. It will remain undetectable if Kurapika doesn't specifically look for it. It's otherwise quite a large Nen beast. As for Mama's, hers is more of a physical one. A large gorilla with 4 arms, it has monstrous strength. I fed it a lot of ore to grow it exponentially. It has no facial features, its eyes are replaced by empty slits and it doesn't have any mouth. Its body is also riddled with scars and strange ritualistic signs. It's going to make sure no harm comes to her. However, it isn't really going to be able to hide from Nen users. But that's the whole point. I made its appearance creepy for that reason. It should be able to intimidate most assassins. Right now, I walked outside of the first tier. Which, as I mentioned before, is basically a cruise ship on top of the black whale. I jumped. I could use my explosions to fly towards the top, but that would make too much sound. Instead, I used yet another relic. Wings of Icarus symbol ring that, when the user injects aura into, gives 1 wings made out of Nen. Completely solid constructs, just grow out of your back, not damaging any clothes in the process. One downside, the greater the altitude the more of a chance they have to burn and stop working. At that point, I can always use explosions though, so not really that big a deal. I don't plan on flying all that high anyway. Otherwise, a pretty neat relic to have. It's going to be useful in my homeland too. Explosions attract a lot of attention there. I flap my wings and reach the head of the black whale. I plan on getting first row seats on how this ship handles the sea beasts. Humanity should already have enough information about them though, they don't differ all that much from regions. Still, the size of this ship is much greater. And I doubt they have enough Nen users to cover it all with their N. That's why I have some doubts about this operation. I sat down on the head of the black whale, taking some tea and biscuits out of my void space. Survival rations are made to be consumed after all. Everything was calm for an hour or two, until I heard a large rumble. I looked in the distance to the side. A large explosion just happened underwater, judging from the huge geyser that just rose from nothing. It created large waves that crashed into the ship. Thankfully, this thing is much too heavy to be moved by waves so easily. I guess their strategy is to keep the beasts away with firepower? That might work for a bit. Hope they have enough missiles for the entire journey though, because they just entered the waters and are already making their presence known. Suddenly, a large tentacle rose from the depths in the distance, signifying that I am almost back home. After that one tentacle, many more followed. The tentacles looked big enough to deal serious damage to the ship. I guess the radar didn't spot the monster quickly? But there is still some distance left. I could see the projectiles flying into the distance, hitting the tentacle monster in different places and creating even more waves. That might be a problem. Why? Well, they also drew a lot of blood. I don't think I need to explain why that's an issue in a sea filled with carnivorous beasts. I could see more and more shadows under the waters, more and more beasts gathered to look for the remains of the tentacle monster that the ship just took down. The ship quickly tried to maneuver around the large crowd forming in the distance. Thankfully, for the residents of the ship, most of the beasts were too busy cannibalizing each other and the tentacle monster's corpse. And would you look at that, Not even 30 minutes have passed since we entered these waters and we already had a close shave, setting a hopeful tone for the rest of the journey. Still, I think the people in charge, which are the other V6 members now that the king of the Kakan Empire is dead, will likely paint this as a successful encounter. They also likely filmed the entire thing and will present an edited version of the ship taking down 2 monsters and leaving with no issue. I doubt they will mention how the ship could have been torn apart if even one of these mindless beasts that flocked the tentacle monster found the random black whale swimming in their waters interesting. _POV narration _ The ship's first encounter with the sea monsters had been a complete disaster for the navigation crew. Their weapons proved effective, but they also proved to attract even more beasts. And their ammunition was not unlimited. Besides that, it seemed like there were beasts that their radar simply couldn't pick up. They didn't even know why, or how. But it just didn't show. The tentacle beast was a good example. They quickly informed the people in charge of how things looked, advising a reroute back to Lake Mobius, but they were turned down promptly. Threatened even, they needed to keep their course. The promise was already made. The ones in charge failed to understand how bad things were. And losing face was something a lot worse for them than the death of a few thousand people. They quickly informed the expedition team, the hunters, of the trouble. They were tasked to try and cover every corner of the ship with their auras, as that was the known method to keep the beasts away. An impossible task, but the arrogant fools didn't understand the limitations of Nen. And they weren't willing to learn either. They simply gave the order and expected it to get done promptly. It left poor Cheetah with a huge headache to deal with. She knew there was no feasible way for them to cover the entire ship with the number of hunters they had. She needed all of the help she could get. So, she once again needed to call up Ashton, the only person that Cheetah thought would have some sort of solution for their predicament. After all, he was a native of the Dark Continent. He was certainly more knowledgeable in this field than her. Still, actually reaching him would prove quite difficult. After all, they weren't sure of his whereabouts, and regular phone communications weren't possible right now. They were far away from any radio tower. The ship did have one, but it only worked for other transmissions. Regular cell phones no longer had any signal. So, she needed to get creative. She asked the member of the Zodiacs that was most likely to know of his whereabouts, Kurapika, one of their newer members. She already knew the two had some connection, mainly because Ashton specifically requested for him to come when he was taking down the Phantom Troop. So, he was her best bet at reaching Ashton. I haven't seen him much since the raid. He proved not to be as helpful as Cheeto had hoped. But he did give her a new lead. But he is the bodyguard of the 12th princess of the Kakan Empire. She should know more about his whereabouts. The Hunter Association's new chairman was quick to go look for the said princess. But she didn't expect the princess to be in an odd depressive state. She seemed to react oddly when hearing about Ashton too. I don't know where he is. I'm sorry. That was all she could say. The girl was clearly not in any state to help Cheeto. The princess had eventually asked Zhonglei and Tugba about how they were recruited into the alliance. She was beyond shocked to hear that Ashton had told her the truth. She had always considered her brother to be a good person, even to the point where she wanted to invite him into the alliance on day one. The only person that stopped her from doing so at the time was Camilla, as she adamantly refused to be in the same alliance as Tserdnik. Apparently, it wasn't out of a petty grudge, as the young innocent princess had previously thought. Camilla was already aware of their brother's true self. Mama's managed to ruin her relationship with Ashton once more. Even worse, she had pushed him away from everybody else near the alliance. That's what she thought anyway. She didn't know that Ashton didn't care about anyone else in the alliance. He just wanted her to remain safe. And building that alliance was his best bet at keeping her mental health in check. He was never really worried about attacks against her. In her mind, she had made a grave mistake. One that she had no way of correcting either. Ashton had not even passed by her room ever since. Even going to Camilla directly to start a meeting. only to break the vase and leave after learning that he was excluded from their meetings. That, of course, was also not completely right. He had only smashed the vase because they had already agreed to destroy it. And he didn't feel like waiting around for everyone to gather up just so they could watch him smash a clay pot. It was all of these misunderstandings that lead to Mama's feeling even more guilty than she should have felt. It didn't help that she was a naturally emotive person. Still, she proved to be of no help to Cheetle. The chairman was left with a dead end in her investigation. Only then did she realize that she could look up his fake identity to find out in which room he was supposed to be. As for why that idea didn't cross her mind first, Ashton didn't bother to use his fake name even once since reaching the ship, which made Cheetle forget about it entirely. But now, she not only had a lead, she had his actual location, and she couldn't ask for any better. She reached his room quickly. She was moving alone during her entire search for Ashton as to not arouse any suspicion. Now, she was already knocking on his door. The door swung open. Ashton looked at his visitor with a tired gaze. His hair was messy and his beard somewhat unkempt. His regular suit replaced by a comfortable pair of loose pajamas. "What?" His voice didn't hide his displeasure in any way. The old scientist was clearly sleeping before Cheetle had interrupted him, leaving the chairman quite flustered. It was still in the middle of the day. She didn't expect Ashton to have such irregular sleep patterns. But he was, after all, a scientist. Night for him was only when he was truly tired. After all, one can only feel truly rested when he goes to the bed tired. I need your help." Cheetle instantly bowed to him. It was an apology, both for waking him up and for seeking his help so often. The scientist stared blankly at her. _POV Ashton_. Would you look at that? She's just like Netero when it comes to asking for help. So, from her panicked ramblings and constant apologies, I managed to gather that the people at the top want the hunters to somehow fend off some of the undetectable sea beasts with their aura. But doing so would be impossible since the hunters don't have anywhere near enough people to cover the entire ship at all times. A true predicament. Truly unfortunate. I fail to see how this concerns me in any way. So, why do you want my help? Outright refusing this will really worsen my already poor public relations. We need a more effective method to keep the sea beasts away. Please, you're my only hope at this point. Cheetle seems to be quite desperate. I mean, it's only been around 3 hours since the ship's close call. I guess I can think of something to keep this ship on the sea. _POV Ashton_. Covering this entire ship in Nen and Ren is a foolish endeavor. We need something more substantial. Cheetle walked beside me as we started heading towards the bridge of the ship. It's situated on the 4th tier, basically in the black whale's forehead. I already changed into my usual clothes. And I need something to do. Pito is still trying her best to speak. And I am beyond bored. I already sent the Nen beasts after the ones they are supposed to be protecting, so there's no need to worry about that. It's not like I needed to go with them. The Nen beasts I made are intelligent enough to find their intended targets. But now I need to find a way for this ship to get through the sea. Why? Because I feel like it. Also, Cheetle asked me nicely. I think their best bet, without my help, would be to prepare a hunter team in the proximity of each spot that's not defended by their weapons. But this ship is so massive that even doing that is impossible. Maybe they had a few more powerful Nen users. I mean, I could cover the entire ship in my aura. But that would be tedious. It's much easier to find an alternative than to give myself that much work. Cheetle, what exactly was the plan for this ship? I still feel the need to ask. I doubt an expedition of this size would be so poorly thought out. Well, from my understanding, they were going to use the radars to spot any incoming monsters and take them down with overwhelming firepower. Okay. So they weren't entirely brainless. But the radar can't seem to pick up some of the creatures. So they can't really combat them in time. Cheetle looked down. I don't know why she's embarrassed about this. The earlier expeditions didn't really use radars. The ships were a lot less modern, so they had no way of knowing if their radars would be able to spot these sea monsters. Even the last expedition was made on a simple ship. I'm pretty sure it was a sailboat. So there was no military-grade radar on board. Problem is, they were so confident in this technology that they didn't even bother checking. They could have sent a probe of sorts, hell they could have done many things. But here they are, asking the Hunter Association to fix their mess. And, the association is asking me now. Well, not the entire association, just Cheadle. But you get the point. I see. How should I salvage this situation? To be honest, Cheadle already owes me a favor, but I won't call her out on it. She should be already aware of it, which is why she keeps apologizing so much. Cheadle and I reached the bridge in a few minutes. The walk was silent, as I was busy thinking up a solution, and Cheadle didn't want to interrupt my thoughts. The bridge itself was quite massive. There were a lot of people frantically running from one place to another, trying to look around the sea for creatures that might attack the ship every second. This is quite the mess, I said to Cheadle. She just nodded a bit, looking at the situation with some sadness. I guess she's lost what little faith she had in this expedition. As if me constantly reminding her how dangerous my homeland is wasn't enough. Now, she finds out that they can't even reach the continent without issues. I looked around the large bridge. The captain of the ship seemed to be panicking as well. This is really not a good thing. I guess every second could be dangerous for them. They need to peel their eyes outside constantly. There are also people watching the cameras for the back and the sides of the ship. I think I have an idea. Since this ship is designed this way, and the sea life is less than intelligent, it could just act like a regular predator. Killing off any being that comes near it will scare off all of the others. The problem here is that the ship might eventually enter the territory of another predator. And that would basically be a declaration of war. But I'll think about it when I get to it. I started explaining my idea to Cheadle. She seemed a bit surprised by it. I guess they didn't really know that the sea beasts are this unintelligent. But everything should be fine for now. No small predator will approach a being of this size, no matter how many of them there are in a school. I think that's why not one of the monsters attacked the ship back then. I just thought they got lucky at the time, but I guess they just didn't want to come close to a dangerous predator. Cheetah liked my idea a lot. She quickly ran and told it to the captain of the ship. The captain also told it to the rest of the crew. I could see them regaining some of their morale when hearing the plan. Some were still stressed when they heard of the territorial disputes that might happen. But it's still better to not fear them. This idea will work for now. The bridge can handle the rest. I started walking back to my room. Cheadle was still explaining things to the captain. And I really don't feel like sticking around. It's not like I have to wait for Cheadle. She's just an acquaintance. One that owes me more favors than Netro did. Oh well, I guess I should go and prepare my gear. I think things will work themselves out on this part of the ship. I also need to start teaching Pito how to use Nen. She already subconsciously uses it from time to time, and she seems to understand me well enough to be thought. Although, I don't know how much I can cram into her in just 2 days. Remember guys, no horny. I guess we'll have to see _POV Ashton_. No, that's not the right way. Observe the way my aura moves. I explained as I covered my body in aura evenly. Pito was in front of me, a confused look on her face. She is trying her best, but she can't seem to cover it evenly for longer than 3 seconds. I keep demonstrating to her how exactly to do it. But it seems like this will take a while. I could also feed her the brain of a Nen user. She should be able to assimilate some of their tricks. I think that's how she learned to use Nen the first time around. But I don't have the brain of a Nen user at hand. I guess I could get one for her, but I don't feel like looking for one. Also, teaching her from scratch will strengthen our bond. She purrs a bit every time she tried to use her Nen. I don't know why, but she doesn't seem to be able to use it properly. Well, Nen is directly linked to desire and will. Even if one is physically strong, it doesn't mean they will succeed in mastering Nen. The only reason she can use it is that her nodes were already opened. If they weren't, she'd be struggling at that stage now. I think this will take a lot longer than I initially thought. Well, not that I thought she'd pick everything up perfectly. I guess I am not that great a teacher. It feels like I'm trying to teach a crawling toddler how to run. I think I should wait a bit more. I made a basic mistake, but it's not like I teach people the basics of Nen every day. The last person I had to teach was Killua. Pito and the ants had some understanding of the basics when I started giving them pointers. Maybe the best solution is to wait for her to gain the desire to grow stronger naturally. I want a powerful companion/servant, but it's not like she has to grow instantly. Pito. It's fine for now. She looked at me for a bit, tilting her head, her eyes filled with curiosity. We can try again another time. Do you want to eat some ice cream? Her eyes widened a bit as she started nodding. I grabbed her hand and started walking outside. I don't have any reason to hide her after all, not all Nen users look normal, and I also don't care if someone else sees her. She has taken a liking to sweets. I didn't know if it was safe for her to eat them at first, but then I realized that she isn't a house cat. Her stomach can likely handle just about anything. I walked by. Some people did give us odd looks, but I didn't really put them to heart. And Pito seems to be a bit too distracted by her joy to notice anything unusual. Not that she would be able to comprehend their odd looks. She's still a bit too innocent to understand the world. Still, it's only a matter of time before she grows up properly. She just pointed at the ice cream that she wanted. I got her a cone of ice cream and walked all the way back towards our room. This time, I didn't bother dragging her along, I let her follow me. She was one step behind constantly. I was also slowly eating my ice cream, she was gulping it down like a glutton. I guess I will also have to teach her manners. Oh well, she has time to develop. I took a few steps ahead of her, she bumped into a large man eventually. She dropped her cone on him and the ground. What the fuck? Stupid whore. He pushed Pito to the ground. Pito was too startled to do anything. This guy is clearly a hunter. His Nen usage is quite obvious, he's likely a hunter for the expedition. I don't think Pito understood his words, but she looked down in fear. There were even tears in her eyes. I don't really like this look on her. I walked to them, tapping the large man on the shoulder. What? You want to defend this spy? His voice was irritating me. So I did the world a favor and stuck my finger into his throat. I cleanly severed his vocal cords, skillfully avoiding any major blood vessels and his windpipe. I pulled my finger out of his neck. The man grasped his neck, opening and closing his mouth like a fish, trying to get words out as his eyes widened. I don't want little Pito's vocabulary to be stained by such vulgarity. You know, some people really need to learn common decency, I said as I wiped my finger with a napkin. He was still desperately opening and closing his mouth. I nicely placed the bloody napkin into his mouth, grabbed Pito with a smile and started walking away. I gave her my ice cream. She still looked sad, a bit scared even. But she took it and smiled a bit. Now, if Pito were still acting on instinct, she would have ripped that man apart in seconds and ate his brain. She has more than enough strength to do so. That weakling wouldn't even be able to push her usually, but she was taken by surprise. Unfortunately, me basically raising her to be a human goes against her usual instincts. But it can't really be helped. I want a companion, not a pet. I will be honest, at first, I didn't really care much for Pito. I mostly played around with the idea of keeping her as a servant. But, after spending so much time with her, she did start to grow on me. This was her first exposure to an unfriendly individual. She was a bit shaken by it, but it's also something that should have happened eventually. I patted her head as she ate my ice cream. I don't think she liked the flavor though. She still ate it anyway, probably because I gave it to her. I guess I will have Cheetle knocking on my door again soon. It's a bit annoying, but it's not like I can avoid her forever. Tomorrow, we reach the shore of my homeland. I will have to attend one last meeting with the Zodiacs _POV Ashton_. The day passed by quickly. There weren't any nautical accidents, no monster attacks, no nothing. I just spent some time with Pedo, trying my best to teach her how to speak. I also noticed something strange. I obviously went and relaxed on the top of the black whale's head a few times. And it seems like the ship is not actually heading for the Dark Continent, which is quite odd. Good thing I am heading for a meeting with the Zodiacs. That should explain a few things. Although, I can make a few guesses as to what is happening. The V5 definitely know of the dangers of the Dark Continent. They would never agree to a plan to attempt to colonize it out of fear. They don't really want another calamity on their hands. And sending so many people to their deaths would be a waste of the workforce and Nen users. So, I guess they steered the ship towards an island closer to the Dark Continent. And, I guess it makes sense. The island is still a week away from the actual Dark Continent. I just thought this ship was fast. Oh well, I guess I was wrong. Still, I don't know if the Kakan Empire is aware of this, or if they are just ignorant to it. Information about the Dark Continent's map and general location is something only a few people in the world know, and I doubt the king of the Kakan Empire was on that list. But, even colonizing this island, which is bigger than half of Lake Mobius, will be a monumental task with the current manpower the expedition has. I am quite confused as to what exactly the plan here is. Netero looked quite confident that they were going for the Dark Continent. And he's been there before, so he should know about it. Unless he also isn't aware of the steering of the ship. Well, he is supposedly being kept under supervision. But he's also formed his own expedition team with the traders of the Zodiacs and other hunters. The situation is odd, and it only gets weirder the more you think about it. Well, I guess I can just blast my way to the Dark Continent from that island. It's not that hard, but I am still curious as to what exactly is happening here. Time to head for the room Cheeto told me about. She came in person and told me the spot and time. Quite thoughtful of her, but I guess she is feeling a bit indebted to me with good reason. Pedo, I have to go for now. Will you please enter the space again? I told her with a smile. We are both just sitting on the couch. Her head is resting in my lap, I am also resting a hand on her head. She dozed off for an hour like this. My voice did wake her up though. She looked at me a bit, then just nodded sadly. Like I just took away her food or something. Good girl. I patted her hair as I ripped the space open with only one hand. I made the hole large enough so she could comfortably walk in. After that, I just got up and started walking towards the supposed location. It's somewhere on the second tier. It won't take me long to find it. Well, I guess it still took me around 20 minutes. But it's not like I received directions or anything. At least I don't remember them. Upon entering the room, everyone was already there. Well, Jean is no longer here, but he did betray the association. There's also Gon's friend that I forgot the name of. He's the one that managed to run for president by mistake and almost won. Other than that, nothing's really changed. Greetings everybody. I apologize for being late, I said with a cordial smile. It's fine Ashton. Everyone is quite stressed out currently. We don't really know what to expect from the expedition. Cheeto was the one to speak, she looked quite anxious. This is odd. I mean, this island isn't going to be all that dangerous. It should have monsters stronger than Lake Mobius, but not that many. Unless she isn't aware of the course of the ship. I guess that's also a possibility. This means that the V5 doesn't actually want to go to the Dark Continent at all. They would have announced Cheeto, as she is the chairman of the association. I see. Well then, I guess I'll have to move by myself. Well then, I guess I have good news for all of you. My smile became wider as I find this situation to be quite amusing. What do you mean? Asked Badabai, the dragon of the Zodiacs. Well, This ship isn't really headed for the Dark Continent. It's just an island near it. Everyone stared at me with wide eyes. I could see Cheadle's ears perk up in a way I can only describe as cute. Granted, the island is bigger than all the continents in Lake Mobius, but it's not really too dangerous, not as much as my homeland anyway. My smile slowly receded as Cheadle seemed to become angry when hearing my words. Why wasn't I announced of such things? She seemed to be shaking in anger. I guess this is quite a big deal. But I can think of a few reasons. They likely don't know who in the association is trustworthy anymore. But they definitely told someone at this table. There must be someone that they could trust with this information. It is after all quite vital. Well, I knew, said the man dressed in a suit with cow patterns. I don't remember his name. Cheadle's anger lowered a bit. She looked a bit confused. Then Badubai also spoke up. I also knew. The two of us were deemed trustworthy by the V5, they entrusted us with taking care of any moles that may be found among us. Cheadle just looked down, frustrated. I don't really understand why they didn't inform her of this. I see. That was all she could mutter. Don't get too discouraged. The V5's opinion isn't worth more than my toilet paper, I said with a yawn. Pretty sure I could hear some stifled laughter in the room. But Badubai and Cowman aren't exactly pleased. But what can I do? I don't really like seeing her so discouraged by something so insignificant. So what if the V5 didn't trust her? Who cares? Thank you. She looked down again, she seemed to be hiding her face for some reason. Before slapping her cheeks twice and raising her head again. I recognized that trope. Don't tell me she's also starting to gain an interest in me. No, I am sure she's just composing herself after her outburst. Besides, they likely did this to avoid bringing another calamity with them. The agents of the V5 nodded. The people in the room gained a look of understanding. I think they only agreed to this expedition because the Kakan Empire forced their hand into doing so, I said as my smile reappeared. Well then. I am glad that I was trying to add something else. A little compliment to the chairman, if only to gauge her reaction. But something interrupted me. The ship shook violently as if it was struck with great force by a large object. I guess the sea was too calm. It seems it was cooking something all this time. _POV Ashton_. Now, I should have expected the sea monsters to be a bit more active in these zones. The way here was a bit too quiet. It must mean the ship didn't pass by any major predator after the tentacle monster. The ship is under attack, shouted the Tiger of the Zodiacs in a panic. Well, I guess the meeting was almost over anyway. The ship must have been damaged a bit, I said as I slowly got up. Still, I doubt any compartment is flooded yet. The ship's external armor seemed powerful enough to withstand a single hit. Still, I don't really want this to be this big of a bust. I may need to help them a bit. Cheadle is even looking at me pleadingly. I guess she knows that I would be able to help. I just sighed and released my N. I obviously needed to put murderous intent into it. The beast will be even more scared that way. If I didn't trade vitality for power, then even I wouldn't be able to cover this entire ship with my N. Looking around, I could see everyone at the table sweating heavily. Even Cheadle was nervous, even though she knows I don't mean them any harm, but I guess she can't really help it. Gon's doctor friend fainted before the monster turned tail and ran away. I could feel it leaving the range of my N. I quickly retracted it into my body. Everyone at the table was silent. No one even breathing. Well then. I took care of it. There's no need to worry, I said with a smile. No one even looked me in the eye. But Cheadle recovered quickly. Just as I was about to leave the room, she asked. Hey Ashton. What are you going to do now? I think she's referring to the expedition. I did express that I am going to the Dark Continent. Well, I might make the journey on my own. It's not that far away from here. Maybe a week of sailing at this speed, I said with a smile. At this point, most of the people in the room had calmed down. Kurapika still didn't look me in the eye though. It's a bit sad that I won't get to talk to him. But I won't approach him myself. I am the senior member here, he should be the one taking the initiative, not me. Please be careful, she said in a loud voice. I could see Botobai cheekily raise an eyebrow. And I understand him, I would do the same if this wasn't about me. But I really hate making someone I care about sad, God knows I already did that enough. 1. Of course. I am in no danger, but you guys should still remain vigilant. The island you are heading to may not be as dangerous as the actual continent, but it still has some dangerous predators. Everyone looked at me with interest. I could give you some information on them, I sighed a bit. Give me a minute. I ripped space open, an action that made all of the people in the room look at me shocked. Well, besides Kurapika and Cheetle. Finally, someone reacting to this. It's so annoying to see people just accept things happening because they are done by me. Out of the space, I pulled out a large book. Everyone looked curious this time. I opened the book in the middle, like usual. And it was obviously empty. But that's just because I want it to be. I don't want them seeing something they shouldn't. Now, finding the species on this island specifically would be hard. If the book didn't have a way to filter the information shown, that is. I pulled on the silk bookmark and poured some nen into it, thinking of the island in front of us. Then, the pages started changing. Slowly, the writing crawled on the pages from the sides. Pictures appearing on every page with explanations accompanying them. This wasn't exactly something you see every day, for the zodiacs at least. They still remained composed. After flipping a few pages slowly, I looked back at the zodiacs. They seemed to be transfixed on me, waiting for answers. But they also didn't ask me anything, either out of fear or respect. It seems like you will be dealing mostly with animals that also appear in Lake Mobius. It seems like some people were relieved when hearing that. Too bad I didn't finish my sentence. Well, improved versions of them. It seems like they just evolved in a more harsh environment. Also, it seems like a family of hellbells has also made its nest in the northern part of the island. Yep, their relief was short-lived. I can still give them some advice though. Thankfully, that's the only calamity you have to worry about. You will be fine as long as you don't step into the swampland in the north. Are they not going to attack us? Asked the snake lady of the zodiacs. They are highly territorial, they won't be an issue if you just stay away. Well, there is a chance they might migrate. But it's low. I see. Thank you for the help, Ashton. Well, I guess I can give them one last warning. Do not be deceived by looks. There is nothing friendly or peaceful on this island. The good-looking places are the dangerous ones. It's all I can tell them for now. It's a simple warning. But I felt I am obligated to give them at least this much. Good luck. We will meet again eventually. I got up and left the room, putting the compendium of the Wild Hunt back into my void space. I walked out of the room. I now have another destination in mind. When spreading my N, I noticed something quite peculiar. Another group of hunters, similar in strength to the zodiacs, are gathered somewhere else in the lower tiers. I am now forced to check it out. _POV Ashton _ And there I was, walking towards the lower tiers to find out more about the gathering of decently powered hunters. At least I assume they are hunters. It's not exactly a guarantee. Helping the expedition earlier was more of an impulsive move than anything. It's not like I genuinely care for it. But I also have no reason to hate it now. Especially since the expedition isn't actually heading towards the Dark Continent. Which makes it a lot less important to me. I would have likely left it to its fate otherwise. I had already helped them enough anyway. There was also Cheetle, a person that I don't really understand how to describe. I wouldn't call her a friend. More of an acquaintance than anything. But I find her intriguing enough. She has moments where she acts close to me, others where she doesn't even speak to me. Overall, I think she considers me a friend of sorts. Although, that might just be because I helped her quite a bit lately. Hey, it doesn't matter much anyway. I doubt I'll meet her much in the future. Still, I wonder how to fix whatever issues there are with Kurapika. It's quite clear that he's not planning on speaking to me. Well, maybe that is for the best. I did deceive him to start a friendship. Honestly, things would be much better if I was more straightforward. But it simply isn't in my nature. I reached the lower stairs while deep in my thoughts. I passed an obviously dented part of the ship. People and workers were gathered around it. Some were whispering in fear while others were looking in shock as the repair crew was assessing the damages. Apparently, there was no leak or flooding due to the attack, but it certainly showed the passengers that this ride isn't exactly as safe as advertised. Everyone. There is no need to panic. The monster that attacked us was powerful, but it was still driven away by our powerful vessel. Great, here comes the propaganda spreaders. Well, I don't really care if they want to think the sea monster was driven away by this. It's not really any of my business. By the time I reached the room with the interesting meeting, it was already almost ending. People were getting up and preparing to leave. I entered anyway. Well, the door was locked, but that has rarely stopped me in the past. I kicked the door open gracefully, it flew off its hinges and crashed into the wall. "Good day," I said with a smile. Everyone in the room looked to be battle ready. "Oh, there's also Jing here. Neat. Who are you? How did you get this location?" asked a fat man with hair worn in a bowl cut. "Wait. Is his head shaped like a neck? This is interesting." The people in the room all look interesting in fact. A girl that seems to have robotic movements, wearing a school-like uniform. There's also a woman with hair worn in 4 different buns. Her eyes are strangely empty. There's a person that looks kind of like an elf but not really. He has long white hair. There's even a piloted mech. This is quite the engineered marvel. Well, it's likely a conjured construct, but it seems to be quite powerful. There's a dude with a square jaw and a sushi chef headband. He's also wearing an apron, so he's likely the cook. Well, there are a few more. But I don't care much about them. Since both Pariston and Jing are here, I assume this is the expedition party. So, they are still planning an expedition. Jing should have realized that we aren't heading for the Dark Continent though. He should still have Don's book. And that means that they are planning to ditch the fake expedition and go on an actual expedition. Well, power to them, it's their death. The wildlife is bound to be a lot more active with my arrival. And since they can't really do much to me, they will have to take their frustrations off on others. First off, the name's Ashton. Nice to meet you all. I am here to join your little expedition, I said with a proud smile as I boisterously pointed at my chest with my thumb. Everyone stood in silence and watched me a bit. No one lowered their guard. The mech was actually preparing to fire towards me. Ha! I just complimented it. It'd be a shame if I had to turn it to scrap. Now. I am not an enemy here, I said with a smile. It's time to play a role once more. If I can reach the continent with them I won't have to waste the energy to explode my way there. After all, using Noah's Ark would be even more taxing for such a small journey. It's one of the conditions of the relic. The longer the duration the least it costs. These guys here can prove to be useful for a week or two. _POV Pariston Hill _ Why is this maniac here? These fools, baring their teeth at him. Are they trying to get us all killed? Well, they have no way of knowing what he is. Thankfully, the monster seems to want to join our expedition. It's easy enough to tell that he isn't lying. He doesn't need to backstab us or betray us in order to kill us. If he felt like it, we would already be dead. I can only assume he's also interested in heading for the Dark Continent. I am sure he has his own reasons. Our mole, the monkey of the Zodiacs, just informed us of his presence in their meeting. And also that the powerful N we had just felt was in fact his. It didn't really surprise me, I already knew he's a monster. It seems that Monkey forgot to explain how Ashton looked. He just gave a basic description. So now the people in the room don't recognize him. It seems that I need to mend the situation myself. Everyone. Lower your weapons. This man is a new addition to our group. I was the one to invite him. Everyone looked at me weirdly. I guess it's because I am no longer the second in command of the expedition. Jing has that title now. They looked at me skeptically. But listen to me. They must not really appreciate that I am ordering them around. But it's also for their own safety and mine. Why didn't you announce us of this beforehand? Pariston, Uzamen, the sushi chef, seemed to be the first to complain. This may be a problematic situation, but it's a lot better than losing my life. Well, I may have forgotten to announce to him that I would attend this meeting. I had a busy day after all. Thankfully, this monster is more than capable of lying. I guess that makes sense, someone this powerful would obviously not be an idiot. I did have a sea monster to keep away from the ship, he said as he was rubbing the back of his head with a smile. I guess he's laying his cards on the table, huh? It makes sense to do things this way. Fewer misunderstandings and senseless conflicts. But it also means the people in the room now know he was also meeting with the Zodiacs. He must already know we have a mole in the Zodiacs. Hell, even the Zodiacs know. Now, let's see how he plays this. _POV Ashton_. Everyone looked vigilant when I made that claim. They surely felt my N earlier. I think this is the appropriate response though. They are probably thinking about what would have happened if they all attacked me. It's a bit strange that Pariston decided to help me out. But I doubt he's planning something too nefarious. So that was you? Asked the sushi chef. Of course, the sea monster's attacking was quite surprising. Although it wasn't anything too dangerous, I said with a smile plastered on my face. Strong, said the robotic girl wearing a school-like uniform. I could see some excitement hidden behind her cold gaze. I guess she's the type that likes to fight strong opponents. That's. Now, I guess we can sit back down and talk a bit, said Jing, calming everyone as they all sat down somewhere in the room. I guess he's always been the leader type, a bit more charismatic than others and always friendly to strangers. I also took a seat on the couch, right beside the lady with empty eyes. So, I guess we should ask about the field you are an expert in, said the elf-looking man, looking at me with a tinge of curiosity. He didn't bother hiding his suspicion of me. Well, I don't specifically have a field of study. I used to develop nuclear weapons. But I've been to the Dark Continent before, I said with a smile. That seemed to catch everyone's interest. When exactly? I didn't hear Beyond mention anything about you in the latest expedition. The white-haired elf is really asking a lot of questions. But that just means he's capable. They obviously don't trust me at all. All of them are eyeing me up cautiously. Well, I was in the expedition with Isaac Netero. It was quite a long time back, and I was basically a stowaway, I said with a small laugh. I see. You certainly don't look that old, he said, but he didn't really use that last part as an accusation. Nen users should know that looks can be deceiving. I can look like I am in my 40s and still be as old as if not older than Netero. It also helps that they already know I am a powerful Nen user, so they have fewer doubts as to whether or not I am capable of living so long. Well, I am glad to have you among us. My name is Jing. The one you were just speaking to is Maher, and this one is. Jing continued to tell me the names of everyone present. The robotic schoolgirl is named Marion, the sushi chef is named Uzamen, the robot is named Golem lacking imagination but whatever. The fatty is named Mascar, there is also a really short guy with a mushroom hat named Picatero. Guy with curly hair named Curly. Really, who named these people? Well, my name is Ashton. I will be transparent with you all. Everyone looked at me for a bit. I am only traveling to the Dark Continent to study the calamities, so I might end up separating from our group after a while. Being honest here will help avoid misunderstandings later. I see. Well, we all have our reasons for going to the continent, said the white-haired elf. Maher is his name. It's understandable, said Marion, still eyeing me up with a hint of curiosity. If she's anything like Netero, she will ask me for a spar as soon as she can. Battle junkies aren't really all that rare when you look at Nen users, they are actually the largest group. A lot of Nen users like feeling powerful, and what better way to feel that besides actually beating a strong opponent. Still, I would like to ask a question I am sure everyone in this room is curious about. This time Jing spoke up. Why were you attending the meeting with the Zodiacs earlier? Well, I guess the Zodiacs truly have a mal amongst them. I did have my suspicions, but this confirms it. I doubt I need to inform Cheeto, I've already helped her enough. It's quite simple really, I joined the expedition through them with a fake identity. So I would obviously need to speak to them from time to time, I said without breaking my calm facade. But, inside, I am getting a bit annoyed at all of their questioning. Although, I can understand why it is happening. They wouldn't want a mole of their own in the expedition team. Understandable. It seems like Jing is satisfied with my answer. And lastly, are you aware that you might make an enemy out of the V5? We are going without the permission of the strongest governments around the world, Jing continued. It's nice of him to give me a warning. I guess he just wants to make sure Pariston informed me of the state of things when he recruited me. The V5 is no danger to me. I have political immunity in most countries, my research gives me quite a bit of power and influence. The V5 is the least of my worries right now. Well, they were the V6, but the Kakan Empire is going through quite a few changes recently. So the country was temporarily booted out of the V6, which made the name change back to V5. I see. Then it's a pleasure to have you aboard, Jing said with a smile. It seems like most of them don't have all that much to add to this situation. Maher seems to not trust me completely. But he is not openly showing it, which is progress. Now, we just talked about our plan to break beyond out of prison. Pariston was the one that started speaking next. He was strangely quiet after that initial help he gave me. I guess they want me to be up to speed with their plans and operations. And rescuing Beyond is quite normal, he is supposedly the leader of the expedition. We will work together with our mole to do so. Since the roles have already been established, you won't take part in the operation, Pariston continued. No one protested with his logic, and I personally don't care. I don't mind not taking part in it. Besides, I don't really feel like doing all that much until we reach the continent. I will take my time and relax a bit. _POV Ashton _ Pariston told me a bit more about their plan to rescue Beyond. Apparently, the guy is guarded by 3 members of the Zodiacs at all times. Well, one of them happens to be their mole. The guards are permanently inside Beyond's cell. I guess they changed places with a few trusted hunters during the meeting. The plan is that the mole is going to attack the other 2, their mole will hopefully take one of the guards out by surprise. Golem and Marion will enter the room and keep the other busy. Another team will rush the cells, ignore the fighting happening inside Beyond's cell and free him. A simple plan, shouldn't really go all that wrong. Well, technically anyway. There are quite a few ways this can go badly. For example, if they know about the mole, Kurapika should have a lie detection ability. He should be able to spot out the mole with some interrogation. And I think Cheeto would have thought to question her allies first. Somehow, I think this operation will be a bit bumpier than they first expected. Golem and Marion should be able to handle 2 Zodiac members by themselves though. I am sure they'll manage. But I'll wait in this meeting room of theirs. Just in case. If the operation isn't going to go perfectly, they might get found and they would be forced to separate from the fake expedition faster. Otherwise, they run the risk of getting caught. Even if they are individually stronger than the guards, they would still be overwhelmed if 300 of them started beating down the door. So, I went to my room while the others were preparing for the rescue. I neatly packed whatever I still had left in there, including the bed and some free towels. Now, I could just go and wait for them in the meeting room. But it would be a bit rude to just vanish like this. I think I will pay Mama's one last visit. Well, scratch that. I'll just write her a note and send it to her discreetly. I don't think she'd appreciate a cordial visit after the fiasco that was our last talk. Okay, I am not really great at writing formal letters, but I should at least try. Also, I've just realized how old-fashioned this is, but I guess I am an old man. Well, I will be a bit more honest in this letter. I hope she reads it eventually. To be honest, I expect her to throw away the letter or tear it to pieces. But I will still give it my best. It's quite amusing when I think about it. I was never a good friend to anyone. I was the recluse that needed a push to spend time with people that were important to me. It was my way of coping with the fact that I would outlive everyone in my life. Yet, here I am, putting effort into something for someone that likely hates me. Why exactly I was lacking the insight to spend this effort on my friends when the time was right? Well, I better stop lamenting my mistakes. I won't manage to get anything done if I get distracted so often. But writing didn't take long. It was done just like that. A heartfelt letter. The type that would make Netero laugh at me. Maybe. I walked towards her room. It's not like I have to hurry all that much. The rescue operation will likely take an hour or two. Still, I made sure to remain invisible. Don't really want to be seen around these parts. I simply entered her room and slid the letter under the door. There's no way for her bodyguards to notice me. After that, I just left. No need to further complicate things. And just like that, I ran out of things to do. I guess I will wait for them in the meeting room. _POV narration _ Whilst Ashton was heading back to finish wasting his time, Mamas was still busy crying in self-pity and looking at the ceiling of her room. She had thought she had gotten over how she had ruined her relationship with Ashton. But, just as she was about to leave her room and start looking for him, she found a letter on the floor in front of it. She opened it up cautiously, eyeing it up with a raised eyebrow. But then her eyes widened as she realized who the sender was. She quickly started reading the letter. Dear Princess, I am writing this letter to inform you of my departure from the expedition. I am sure you are already aware that I was going to depart from the expedition upon reaching land. It felt appropriate for me to inform you of it. There are many words that I can use to describe our last meeting. Cordial is not one of them. I didn't want to leave it off at that. I am well aware of the chances that you will just ignore this letter after realizing it's from me. But I hope you can one day forgive me. Please take care of yourself. I will always protect you, there's no need to worry about that. I made sure no one in Lake Mobius, or the Dark Continent, will be able to harm you. I apologize for not being the man you thought me to be. Kind regards. Ashton, your bodyguard. The letter was not long, it also wasn't short. But it made the girl even more regretful. The last part felt like a dagger stabbing through her heart. She knew Ashton didn't blame her, but the knowledge that he blamed himself was even worse for her. She was both flattered by the fact that he was still protecting her and saddened that he had not stopped by to at least hand the letter personally. She understood that, at least from his perspective, she hated him. And that was painful to read. Calling their last interaction less than cordial was being very generous. She had said really bad things, things that she wished she could take back. Calling him a shameless murderer and an emotionless monster was not something she was proud of. She wanted to speak to him and, worse than anything, she wanted to apologize to him. But there was nothing she could do now. Nothing other than wiping her tears and going back to sit on her bed. Staring at the walls in a daze. And rereading the letter time and time again. She wished she was a stronger person, that she could run out and look for Ashton herself. But there she was, not even able to compose herself at the feeling of guilt. Her regret would only grow as time passed by. This letter gave Mamas two possible paths in life. Ashton had unknowingly written a letter that became a crossroad in her life. She could drown in a spiral of never-ending guilt and self-pity, one that would one day bring her inescapable doom. Or, she could pick herself up, become a stronger person, one that could walk on her own proudly, and search for the person she loved. The choice was now in her hands. _POV Ashton _ Well, these guys are certainly taking their time with the rescue mission. Then again, maybe they did run into some complications. Good thing I prepared for departure already. I took out Pedo. If I need to wait, I might as well spend time with her. She looked around a bit. The change in scenery every time she comes out of the void space is a bit disorienting for her. She still walked towards me and sat on my lap. Her tail wrapped around my hand as she leaned on me and started snoring a bit. I guess she wants to rest a bit. Well, here I was hoping I'd talk to her, but this is fine too, I guess. I'll just stand here and stare at the walls for a few minutes. I wonder how far her training has come. It's clear enough that she trusts me quite a lot, but I can't really know for sure before she learns to communicate properly. As I stood there staring at the walls, the door swung open as the expedition team rushed in. They were in varying states of injury, but none seemed too seriously injured. Well, it seems like the plan went smoothly, I said with a wry smile. Pedo was startled awake by the sound of the door smashing into the wall. I patted her head a bit, calming her down instantly. Well, there were some issues, but we still managed to rescue Beyond, said Jing with a wry smile. And why are you here? Asked Beyond, as he finally entered the room. He seemed to be shocked to see me here. But there was also some fear in there. I guess our last encounter wasn't really a friendly one. Oh, nice to meet you too. Netero's spawn. He took a step back as I spoke up. Everyone. Prepare to. He was about to say something stupid. So I interrupted him. Hey now, it's quite obvious that I joined the expedition. Why else would I be here waiting for you people? I said as I stared at him. He stroked his beard a bit. I guess that makes sense. He nodded with a smile. Is this guy really supposed to lead an expedition? For all of his feats, planning this expedition and doing all of this plotting behind the scenes, he sure is as stupid as his father. So, care to explain what actually happened? I asked from my sitting position. Pedo was still sitting in my lap. She was getting a few odd looks. But I really doubt she cares. She seems to want to fall back asleep. Well, it seems the Zodiacs were expecting something like this to happen. Yeah, no shit. They took out our mole quickly and then reinforcements came as Marion and Golem fought the other two members guarding Netero. Marion looked to be fine, but Golem seemed to be missing an arm and had some scratches on the surface. Great. So, I'm guessing you were also followed here, I said as my face shifted into a scowl. I took off my coat and suit and tie, letting just the pants and the shirt. I ripped open space and placed all of them in, including Pedo. She looked a bit confused, but I can explain things to her later. Well, we shouldn't have been followed. I did pay extra caution to our surroundings as we retreated. Sure you did. I took a classic smiling opera mask out of my void space and put it on, my hair changing its color to white. Are you sure about that? I sense quite a few people on your tail. They instantly turned vigilant. Their panic is evident. The situation is a lot messier than I first expected. I guess they retreated in a hurry after they managed to break Beyond out. The Zodiacs must have had a way to track them all the way here. There's no other explanation for this situation. These people seem otherwise capable enough. I also need to think about what weapon I can use in order to not give away my identity. Cheetah learning that I'm cooperating with traitors would be a bit annoying. It seems like we need to split up. We need to establish a meeting location somewhere on the new continent. Beyond was the first to quickly give a suggestion. The problem is that this island is unexplored. To establish a meeting point would be to already know a location on it. We could just take a docking ship and leave for the Dark Continent. My suggestion seemed to be more popular than Beyond's. Most of the team nodding. But that would mean that some of the supporting members won't make it, said Jing with some concern. We don't have much time to debate on it. They are here, I said as I rushed towards the door and pulled the closest member out of the way. The robotic schoolgirl, Marion. Her previous location was instantly smashed by a large hammer as the door was instantly crushed to bits. Bada bye, the dragon, seems to be the first to rush into the room. But the rest of the Zodiacs are hot on his trail. All of the members of the expedition are preparing for battle. What a mess, I said as I let go of Marion. She looked at me a bit. She didn't seem grateful at all. I could have taken care of that. That is what she said. Sure, you're welcome. I rolled up the sleeves of my shirt looking at Badabai and the Lion of the Zodiacs. Sure. Now, I will take these two, I said whilst pointing at them. Then immediately started running for them. The other members of the expedition were also taking on Zodiac members. Beyond fighting Cheeto, Jing and Pariston taking on the Cowman and the Snake Lady. I can't really use the Zoldyck family techniques. But I still have some options. Humph. Let's see you try. Huffed Badabai, as he raised his mallet above his head. I quickly condensed my Nen into a mallet of my own and raised it to meet his. He covered his weapon in quite a bit of Nen too. The contact created a powerful shockwave, pushing the tiger back a bit and blowing away some of the surrounding members. He's a lot more powerful than I expected, but I guess he is the oldest member of the Zodiacs. He also seems quite shocked at my strength. The short tiger, I think his name is Kanzai, immediately rushed me after recovering, trying to claw at my chest. I quickly let go of my mallet, breaking the standstill with Badabai as I took a step back. His hammer smashed the ground a centimeter in front of me, shaking the ground and breaking the floor. My hands were immediately covered in Nen. I shaped it into a claw. I met the tiger's claw with my own. I quickly pushed him back, kicking his torso and sending him flying across the room. Badabai was quick to bring his hammer to my side. His hit was almost in contact with me, but I managed to raise my hand and form a tower shield on it in less than a second, perfectly blocking his attack as my legs slid on the floor. I looked around for a bit. All of the members of the expedition are stuck fighting against the Zodiacs. The only member missing is the monkey, who I presume was the mole. Seems like I need to create an escape path by myself. _POV narration _ As Ashton was surveying the room, looking for an escape path, Kanzai quickly rushed at him again. His clawed hand extended to much greater extents. His claw seemed to be even larger than his body. His eyes turned red as he entered a frenzy and started slashing towards Ashton. The masked scientist quickly turned the tower shield into a buckler, blocking all of Kanzai's attacks with one hand while retreating backwards. All until another mallet strike came from his side. This time blocking Badabai's mallet with an Nen construct would be quite difficult. So Ashton was instead forced to use another Hatsu. Wind aspect. Grants his Nen the proprieties of the wind. This is actually what the old scientist used the most in his time on the Dark Continent. He had stopped using it at some point, as parasitic explosion became his favorite. Ashton created a dome of rapidly revolving wind around him and pushed his hands forward. The dome expanded violently and sent the two Zodiac members flying. Kanzai rolled in the air and dug his claws into the ground, bringing himself to a stop. Badabai wasn't as dexterous, but he still managed to dig his legs into the ground. The wind continuously streamed in their direction, trying to push them away. It also affected some of the other fights. It managed to take Beyond and Cheeto by surprise and almost crushed them into a wall. Gina and Pariston were directly sent flying. Their opponents, Gel, the snake of the Zodiacs, and Myziastum Nana, the ox of the Zodiacs, were both sent flying in the same direction. Marion and Golem weren't affected by the powerful gust of air. But their opponents, Kurapika and Sakoko Bayakawa, the horse of the Zodiacs, were momentarily distracted, which allowed the members of the expedition to land a few cheap hits. Not that they were of much help, as Kurapika quickly healed both his and Sako's injuries. Badabai and Kanzai both recovered from the powerful push, as the wind stopped trying to push them backwards. Instead, Ashton made a pulling motion with his hand and Badabai felt a strange surge of wind push him towards the masked scientist. It was powerful, and Badabai wasn't prepared to resist it. He was flying towards Ashton at ridiculous speeds. But he was no beginner at fighting. He used that opportunity to swing his mallet towards Ashton one more time, using the momentum of the pull to strengthen his strike. Ashton had expected something like this. However, instead of dodging, he decided to tank it with his shoulder, using Ryu and putting a decent percentage of his Nen into his shoulder. As Badabai's mallet hit Ashton's shoulder, Ashton's fist dug into Badabai's abdomen. Both attacks seemed to be devastating. Badabai was instantly sent flying backwards into Kanzai, who was rushing to his aid. And Ashton was sent to the side, directly colliding with the wall behind him. Although both hits made contact, the damage was much greater for Badabai, as his kin had not been strong enough to defend against Ashton's fist. No actual damage had been dealt with Ashton's shoulder, but the hit had sent him flying in the direction he wished. The wall he had collided with was connected to the outside. It was an extremely thick coat of steel and low minerals, at least 20 meters in depth. But it was above water level, and Ashton's escape plan was quite simple. "I'll just break this wall down, and drag all of the expedition members with me." It was by no means unattainable. So, he turned around. He covered his entire arm in Nen as it was strengthened to sickening degrees. He punched with enough force to be felt throughout the entire ship. The metal bent and twisted around his fist. The first punch hadn't been enough. But the Zodiacs caught on to his plan. It was similar to the mark the sea monster had left on one side of the ship. It still wasn't enough. Kurapika instantly sent a chain towards him. Ashton rolled to the side as the chain also hit the damaged wall. It still wasn't enough to break through. "Stop him," shouted Cheeto. Beyond laughed as he continued to hold her occupied. Beyond was quite enjoying the chaos of the situation. It was still a bit annoying to him that Cheeto was holding him in place so much. But the woman was still powerful enough to spar with his father, so there was no surprise that he wouldn't be able to defeat her easily. The sheep of the Zodiacs, Ginta, was quick to act. He dashed towards Ashton, ignoring his previous opponent as his Nen formed into horns. His massive size made him look like a train hurtling towards Ashton. His speed was not matching his size at all, as he was a lot faster than Kanzai had been in his frenzy. Ashton wasn't going to let that distract him too much. He smashed another punch into the ship as the wall almost broke down. Then, he jumped over Ginta, even going as far as to step on his head. The step was powerful enough to make Ginta lose his balance, his horns digging into the ground and his body smashing into another part of the bent wall. Ashton, seeing as the wall was about to fall, decided to give it a last push. Using wind aspect, he created a powerful air cannon that pushed everything in front of him. He extended his palms forward as the wind pressure bent the steel and further strained it. It had finally had enough. It gave way as the part directly in front of Ashton's hands broke. He looked back at all of the expedition members and used the wind to pull them all towards him, even the ones that had been knocked out of the fight. Beyond laughed as he realized their escape was secured. He gave Cheetil and the Zodiacs one last haughty look as all of the expedition was flown off the ship. Ashton used his Hatsu to fly with the members for quite a while, until the black whale was no longer in sight. Then, he ripped the space open and took a small sailboat out of his storage. It was only about 25 meters in length and around 9 in width, a depth of around 8 meters. He placed all of the members on the sailboat and landed himself on it too. Now, all they needed to do was to sail towards the Dark Continent. Well, maybe get a better boat first. _POV Ashton_. As soon as I landed on my sailboat I looked at the expedition team. Everyone was injured in some way. Only Beyond seemed to be fine, and I think I am the one that injured Jing and Pariston. But that doesn't matter. Uzamen, the sushi chef, had been knocked out during the fight. He woke up in the middle of the flight in a panic. "Well, that was a bit unexpected," he said as he looked around and clung to the ship like his life depended on it. "This ship isn't exactly large enough for 14 people. Well, it is, but there won't be much privacy to be had. We also lost all supporting members. We will definitely run into complications in the continent," said Beyond as he stroked his beard. Indeed, all of the team was necessary for a smooth expedition. Jing also seemed to be quite troubled. "We could follow the black whale and extract the members after they reach land," said Maher, the elf. "But is this ship even able to catch up to the black whale? And how will we look for our people on the new continent that they're exploring?" asked Curly as he raised his cracked glasses with one hand. "I can use my wind hatsu to propel the ship," I answered his first question. "The second one isn't really any of my business. I really don't like this sailboat. Even with my wind hatsu, we will only reach the Dark Continent in around 3 weeks from our current location. I was hoping the expedition would have their own boat prepared. But I guess the Zodiacs ruined some of their plans. The sails can only handle so much wind force. I think our best bet would be to reach the island and contact them discreetly. We will also need a bigger ship." Beyond finally steps up as the leader. "Good, I guess I'll steer us towards the new continent. You guys can go recover," I said as I started walking towards the steering wheel. "Wait. Ashton, weren't you injured too? Most of us fought carefully, but you tanked a few hits." Jing seems to be concerned about me. "That's nice to see." "I am fine, I didn't take any real damage," I said with a smile as I took off my opera mask and my hair turned back to black. "I see," he said as he looked at the rest of the group. They had already taken their idle positions. Some were applying bandages to themselves. It's a good thing this ship has 2 first aid kits. "Oh yeah. Sorry for catching you up in my attack." Jing seemed to appreciate my apology. To be honest, it's been a while since I've sincerely said these words. But I do feel bad about it, especially after he showed some concern for my well-being. Pariston also looked in our direction, but I don't really care about him. Jing also went and sat down somewhere. He isn't injured all that heavily, but some rest is still needed. "So, how long will it take for us to reach the new continent?" asked Beyond. He is still filled with energy. "I guess he should be as strong as Netero was in his youth. Or at least somewhat close to that. I doubt he's had the same drive to become the strongest that Netero had. It will take us at least a day and a half. I can accelerate us, but this ship can't really handle all that much speed," I said as I looked at him. "He's a lot less irritating when he doesn't try to annoy me." "I see. By then the Zodiacs and the Hunters should already be exploring the new continent. He really likes to stroke his beard when speaking. I guess it's like a nervous tic. We can use that as an opportunity to snatch a better ship from the black whale. I can handle the ship stealing while you guys contact your people," I said as I kept my sight fixated on the sea ahead. It's good to keep vigilant these waters. The black whale didn't really have any problems with underwater geysers sending rocks into it, but this ship will have that issue. The waters around these parts are also really violent, prone to constant weather changes and lightning storms. "I see. We can take turns steering the ship. I know how dangerous the waters can be." "Ooh, he's volunteering to help. That's nice." "Thanks, kid. It's nice to see you so eager to help," I said with a smile. "Don't call me kid," he said, all angry. I'm pretty sure he almost tripped his own beard off. "Oh please. I used to call you Father Kid all the time when I first met him. You two have similar reactions." He scratched the back of his head in confusion. I see. Just call me if you need help." He scampered off acting all embarrassed. For all of his disrespectful talk with the Zodiacs, his father should still be an enigmatic figure. A few sentences from him forced all the hunters and governments in the world to cease all planned expeditions to the Dark Continent. The man was highly respected and influential. Still, his desire for adventure is too great it seems. As he decided to venture forth and plan an expedition behind his father's back. I doubt Netero would be all that mad, but he certainly wouldn't be pleased. This is the second time this brat disrespects Netero and goes to the Dark Continent. It's a bit funny now that I think about it. Both the son and the father were drawn to my homeland like moths to a flame. Netero wisened up quickly and realized that there wasn't much to be had there. But Beyond seems to be looking for something there. I doubt he's the type to care for the advancements of humanity. Ashton, are you hungry? Has this much time passed already? A few hours flew by with me idly looking at the sea and reminiscing like an old man. Sure, Jing. Just give me a minute, I said as I looked at the sky. The black clouds are a bad omen for all fishermen and ship captains, and they seem to be gathering quickly above us. The rest of the passengers also noticed the change in weather. The waves were slowly becoming more violent as the wind picked up its pace. I raised a hand and created a dome of wind around the ship. Going through this storm would be a bit annoying, and blowing the clouds away would be a bit too taxing. So, the best solution is to submerge the ship for a bit. I dragged the ship underwater, controlling the air and generating propulsion using the oxygen found in water. After that, I left the ship go forwards for a bit. The rest looked at me a bit surprised, and a bit annoyed. Maybe I should have announced to them of the ship becoming a submarine beforehand. Well then, let us eat, I told Jing as I walked towards the group. They still looked a bit confused. I guess a small explanation would help them a bit. The dome of air can protect us from most threats, I said with a smile. My answer to their silent query seemed to be satisfactory enough. I guess I need to get accustomed to working in a team. It's really been a long time. Team fights don't count. _POV Ashton_. I have steered the ship underwater for around 3 hours until the sky relaxed and gave way to the sun. During this time, Jing and Beyond would sometimes come and talk to me, just going over the plans and asking if everything was alright on my side. It was a bit funny to see the relief on the faces of some of the hunters when the ship finally came out of the water. After bringing it out of the water, I switched places with Beyond momentarily. He knows the direction and he knows what to do, so I don't need to worry about him screwing things up. While on my break, I went and talked to some of the members of the expedition. Only a few seemed to actually want to talk to me. The sushi chef Uzamen just thanked me for pulling him out from the fight. He was a bit embarrassed at having lost. Another member that talked to me was obviously Jing, who seems to have a decent opinion of me. I guess he doesn't know that I blew off his son's legs. But he does know that I helped save his life. So that's why he's a bit more welcoming than the other members. Well, there's also Pariston, who I like seeing squirm whenever I pretend to take a step towards him. It's quite clear that he fears me for some reason, but I still haven't remembered why. Marion only spoke to me to tell me that she could have continued fighting and that we would have won if I didn't pull everyone away. I think she realizes that winning in that situation wouldn't have meant anything. It would have just weakened both groups before their respective expeditions. But she's a bit too prideful to admit that they were in a really shitty position. If that fight continued, the Zodiac's reinforcements would have arrived, and the situation would have been a lot messier. The expedition group would have slowly been overwhelmed without me there anyway. Badobai and Kanzai individually could have proved dangerous for most members of the expeditions. Maher was still too deep in thought to engage in conversation. He said he's busy thinking of a way to contact the other supporting members of the expedition. Phones aren't really useful, and only a few members could be contacted through walkie-talkies and other devices. Well, I'll leave it to them to figure those things out. I don't feel like helping them with everything. Curly was just lazing around. He hadn't been all that injured, just tired. Apparently, he played a role in the earlier fights before they reached the meeting room. He said he was going to try and sleep a bit. He was really friendly, so I decided to give him one of my many beds. He was thankful, even saying that he would love to ask me a few things about the continent. He's a scholar apparently. Maskar, the fatty with an egg head, was already sleeping. I think he found traveling underwater quite relaxing. Golem didn't even want to acknowledge my presence. Quite rude, but I didn't really let it get to me. I think I've come a long way, because if this was a year ago I would have scrapped that tin can and used it as an anchor. And that's a good thing. My temper was never great to have. It always made me do things on impulse and altered my decisions greatly. When I think about it, I could have easily realized that the End King was dangerous on our first clash, when I helped heal that little girl. But I refused to admit that an ant could be of any danger to me. Otherwise, I had many ways I could have prepared to fight the king in his powered state, even without my relics. I just lacked caution. 1. Well, enough about that. This isn't really the time for such thoughts. I have a ship to take care of. We traveled like that for 2 days. Beyond and I constantly took turns steering the ship and resting. I didn't really sleep because I don't actually need to. Curly was also more than happy to talk the nights away with me. We are both really long-winded people when we want to be. He told me of his scholarly achievements and I told him of the numerous nuclear advancements I had made. Eventually, our conversation steered its way around to the continent, which he was extremely happy to listen about. Countless species are littering that place. It is mostly unexplored by mankind. He just nodded. He didn't bother telling me that he already knew this, as he realized this was just the start. I've spent many years there, and I can tell you quite a lot about the areas I've lived in. The continent is far too large for a single man to explore. That's why I also doubt Don managed to finish his journey. Even if he hasn't perished, it simply takes a perverse amount of time just to walk the entire continent. So, you've lived there? He asked, a bit surprised. I guess I didn't tell this group that I'm a native, only Beyond knows. Well, it won't really hurt to tell this guy. Of course, I lived there for most of my life. Only coming here alongside Beyond's father much later, I said with a smile. He looked a bit surprised. Then you must be quite old. I thought you were around 60. Even if you look to be 40. He seemed to be quite embarrassed at not guessing my age. It's not like you had any way of knowing. It's not like I act like a grandpa at all times. I see. Would you like to tell me about how living there was? I heard many things about the place, but not many called it hospitable. His curiosity is nice to see. Too many people are either too afraid to ask questions or too uninterested. Well, I also wouldn't really have talked about this with anyone in the past. Well, I started explaining some parts of my experience with the continent to him. I didn't mention that the monsters used to be friendly. I left many things out of my explanation. I didn't actually want to tell all of my secrets to this guy. Only talk a few things about the flora and fauna that I had experienced personally. He also didn't inquire too deeply about more personal things. Our conversation went on for quite a while until morning came and Beyond took over my shift. Curly slept during the day. We eventually reached the new continent, catching up to the black whale in the process. They definitely noticed us on their radars. But there wasn't much activity from the large ship. Their action plan is to send out the hunters to investigate and clear out some land while the passengers wait in the black whale. The ship itself is far too large to dock on the shore. They are using other ships to transfer people to the new continent. I will take one of those ships soon. The others decided to start looking for the members that weren't easy to reach, while I decided to go and take the ship. There was not much else to do for me, other than relaxing and enjoying a bit of sun. _POV narration_. Ashton was quick to take over a ship. He made a few clones and manned it to the shore near where the smaller sailing ship was previously. He didn't have any difficulty. He obviously wore his mask while doing so. The mask was in fact another object that could be found inside the trickster's bag. It allowed a person to freely change their hair color and voice. The trickster's bag was filled with items, some had similarities in between them, and not all of its abilities were amazing. This opera mask was one of the simpler abilities that the relic had. It was also simple to use. Now, while Ashton was stealing the ship, the rest of the exploration team was collecting their members from wherever they could. They were lucky that some of them knew each other's locations, or at least the general direction they needed to go to find other members. After a few hours, the expedition team was formed. They carefully made their way back to the shore where they knew they would find their ship. The ship that Ashton had chosen was a royal clipper belonging to the Kakan Empire, 133 meters 439 feet in length. A ship with a total of 42 sails. It was stocked with food and supplies. By far, one of the largest sailing ship on Lake Mobius. And Ashton stole it with little difficulty. He was obviously followed at first. But he used wind aspect to push the approaching ships backwards repeatedly, until they simply gave up after 2 or 3 hours. And just like that, the expedition team was reunited and had a large ship. Ashton made his clones man the ship and started steering it towards his homeland. The journey would still take a week at the very least, so there was enough time for talking later. During the journey, Ashton and Beyond would keep taking turns on the steering wheel, both of them being capable ship captains. However, Ashton's clones didn't really need a break, so they were still manning the ship. The journey lasted about as long as expected. Ashton spent the time talking more with a few members of the expedition. And especially Curly, who was always taking notes about the strange biomes Ashton told him about. However, the continent is vast. There is a high chance that the expedition wouldn't even run into any of the places Ashton had described to him. They reached the dark continent during the day. Everyone was awake and well rested. They were all staring at it with a mix of emotions, as the gargantuan predators were easily seen from the sea. The forests trembled with every step they took, trees seemed to sway without any wind, their branches wrapping around smaller animals and their bark crushing everything into fertilizer. The scene was not a beautiful one, and Ashton was also not exactly pleased by what he was witnessing. It was just as bad as he remembered though, so he was still composed. _POV Ashton_. Well, this place is a mess. It's quite clear that things didn't really calm down in my absence. Then again, it's not like I was expecting such things to happen. I steered the ship onto shore using my Windhatsu. I guess this is where we part ways, I said, looking at the main members of the expedition team. Curly seemed quite sad, the rest didn't seem to care all that much. Jing just nodded while Beyond wished me good luck. Those 3 are the only ones that I managed to speak to throughout the journey. Have a safe trip, I said as I flew off in a random direction. I need to find a certain threat right now. This area is somewhat close to where the second expedition landed. Well, not really close, this is in the east of Lake Mobius, the second expedition landed in the north. But I can easily reach that landing spot from this place. It would only take me a few days of flying. This means that I should find Brian, the botanical weapon, as it is somewhat close. I remember the texts saying that I should find it in the ruins of an ancient labyrinthine city that lies 400 kilometers in a forest. Brian is one of the more dangerous calamities to pop up in the Dark Continent. In appearance, it's basically a large sphere on top of a human body. Only 2 people survived the second expedition, and their description of Brian is extremely lacking. Brian is considered to be the guardian of the ruins of that labyrinthine city, extremely aggressive and obviously territorial. From my understanding, its ability has a lot to do with manipulating nature. That wasn't really recorded anywhere. But I remember my Nen teacher saying something about a blob of flesh that took my likeness and manipulated the forests in its wake. I need to be careful, this thing won't be as weak as the Hellbell. And, if its ability is to manipulate fauna, then it's even more dangerous in the Dark Continent than anywhere else. Still, I could look for another calamity on the way there, as there was another one spotted in the northeast. Pap, the human-keeping beast. It's known to keep humans as pets. It's titled A Trade-Off Between Life and Pleasure, which has a lot to do with its abilities. It puts the humans in a trance when it inserts some sort of feelers in the skulls of its human victims. The victim then shrivels up and shrinks to the size of a doll. Victims are reported to be in a constant state of euphoria. From what I've read recently, Pap was supposed to be located on a mountain range somewhere northwest of Lake Mobius. But victims of Pap have been found on Lake Mobius too. No one really knows how the beast even looks, as no one was ever able to catch a glimpse of it. The 7 people that survived it only did so because they ran away when everybody else was dying. So, which one should I visit first? To be completely honest, Pap isn't all that interesting to me. But that bean is bound to hold some secrets. All of the calamities seem to be protecting something, or they build their territories around something that is of importance. I was the only exception to this rule, them not really being territorial and latching on to other beings. I think I will look into Pat first, since it would be a bit foolish to just start backtracking. Well, I have to start somewhere, and this journey seems like it's going to take a long time. _POV Ashton _ In the end, I decided to start heading for the mountain range to look for Pap. It will take a few days, but I think it's better if I take them in the proper order of appearance. Pap was first, then Brian. After that, I will look for the original nest of hellbells and the cave where we last found Eve. Some of them should still be left in there. Now, method of travel. I think the safest solution is to use the wings of Icarus. I can't hide my presence at all when using wind aspect, and propelling myself with explosions will paint an even bigger target on my back. I am currently dressed in my usual garments. A few additions, a pair of pristine gauntlets, the gauntlets of Nath, which I'm going to be wearing constantly. They have a simple design. The metal used to make them is seemingly light and it doesn't look to be able to provide much protection. But, when wearing these gauntlets I would surely be able to block attacks from the King of Ants. They can be strengthened to a much greater extent than my body. They also allow me to strengthen my body beyond its biological limits, even beyond what it can usually achieve with all of my Nen. These gauntlets are vital to both my survival and my original fighting style, although I've changed a lot since I've last wore them. Now my fighting style is not as direct. Sure, I can use straightforward attacks, but I've come to prefer just efficiently killing targets like Zig taught me. I accepted to give my gauntlets up because there wasn't supposed to be any threat in Lake Mobius, at least by Netero's words. I guess quite a lot of things happened since then. Well, they will serve me quite well in this place. I looked in the forest beneath me, every tree in it shook as my old friends got a whiff of my scent in the area. I could see a large, scaly abomination with 3 arms, the torso of an ape with no fur, the legs of a spider, covered in mucus and poison. It was at least 100 meters tall, dwarfed only by the crooked trees of this massive forest. Its face was like that of a snake, the neck could extend far above its regular height. Soon, more of its kind would follow. They usually move in large packs. It seems I will even receive a greeting, huh? I almost couldn't help my smile. The abomination in front of me is one of the predators that can be found in this area. It's not all that high up on the food chain. Its species is one I am very familiar with. The Compendium of the Hunt has quite the peculiar name for it. The Failed Experiment. It implies that this thing is an experiment from the remains of a civilization long forgotten. And it does make sense, such a thing wouldn't happen naturally. At least not anywhere other than this continent. It's quite clear that a large and extremely advanced civilization resided in these lands long before humanity as we know it sprouted in Lake Mobius. Ancient ruins, relics, there's no need to state the obvious. The signs are obviously in plain sight. Most of the beasts in these parts are abominations of this type. That and beasts of legend, beings that have the power and potential to ruin not only humanity but the entire world. They were once peacefully living alongside each other. Now, they are too mad to even use their own strengths properly. I quickly used the wings of Icarus and flew above the trees. I stared down as an entire horde of abominations swirled and trampled on the vegetation, all until they made it too mad. Nothing here is truly weak after all. The trees seemed to grow angry, their branches and roots growing and expanding to capture the aggressors. The abominations struggled, their limbs were being slowly ripped off by the vegetation. After seeing that I just started flying away. I also took out another relic, the Ring of the Wolf, which hides one presence perfectly, including smell. As for why I didn't use this beforehand, I needed to inform the beasts of my arrival. Hopefully, the news will reach their king, my teacher, and he will start making his way here. It's an attempt at distracting him. I also need to visit his lair after all. I must uncover the secrets of this place. There are many things that I need to do in this place. This will take a few years, at the very least. I quickly flapped my wings away, heading for a faraway mountain range, listening to the smooth sounds of cracking bones and tearing flesh from the nearby wildlife. This place is a lot more peaceful than I remember. Well, not really, it didn't change at all, in fact. I find it quite odd, the rate at which the monsters kill each other. You'd think that there wouldn't be many left on the continent. But they seem to be multiplying even faster than they're killing each other. The continent seems to be swarming with life and death. I flew over and observed. I can keep using the wings for days. But I will still need to rest eventually. And that's the tricky part. Thankfully, not many things seem to have changed, so I can just use the methods I used previously, which are also quite simple. I set up a regular camp, use that string Nen method to set up a sort of alarm system, and then use a few relics to create a certain field that protects me from bodily harm. Well, it's not perfect, and it only lasts around 3 hours. But that's more than enough. The alarm system is simplistic, but it's more to keep away smaller animals from coming close. One of the relics I used is called the Bulwark of Safety, a ruby earring that usually creates a protective barrier around the user. But I used it alongside another relic, the Ring, Blessing of Greater Gods. Fun fact, I never actually named this myself. I found it alongside a book that named a few other relics. It basically strengthens any one relic at a time. It's not even feeding off of my Nen. I haven't really figured how it works or why. But I guess I could find out more if I get my hands on the other relics mentioned in the book. Its uses are quite limited. It seems to just extend the range of the bulwark. It makes it cover a 50-meter radius instead of just my body. It makes for a perfect cover during this camping trip. The effects of the ring only last for around 3 hours though, after which the barrier returns to just protecting my own body. The Blessing of Greater Gods then becomes strangely inactive for a random interval. It could be 1 hour or even 1 week. I haven't seen it go over that though. Well, I still have quite a bit of walking-flying to do before reaching the mountain range. _POV Ashton_. I flew for a few days and camped for very few hours. I was still not really close to the mountain range. Well, that's to be expected. The wings aren't exactly my fastest method of flight either. Still, I don't want to use Nen so obviously. Especially when I don't really know where my teacher is. His Nen range was ridiculously large. The Ring of the Wolf also can't really cover major uses of Nen. My Wings of Icarus only work because they are also a relic. They also don't leave much of a trace. Right now, I am passing over some more unknown places. A large crater in the earth that I've not ever seen before. It looked like someone slashed the earth to create a deep wound. It stretched on for as long as my eyes could see. But the cracks around seemed a bit odd. There were also no animals nearby, which is probably an indicator of this place housing a powerful predator, or being dangerous in some way. Then, when flying over it, I felt a powerful pull, the air being sucked in with great force. I was about to be sucked in as well, but I created a vacuum of air around me using wind aspect. This is quite unusual. But it's not like this is the first canyon that tries to kill me. This place is bizarre. Well, this might mean that there's a powerful relic hidden somewhere inside this cavern, either that or one of those legendary beasts. Regardless, I think I will try to explore it a bit. I might have an idea of what legendary beast I might find here. I remember the rock is one of the only beasts capable of this that are still not extinct. I had met one in the past, when they were actually intelligent. With their minds intact, they can even be as strong as me with all of my relics. But now, they fall a tier or two beneath that. Well, I can't stand around not doing anything. My use of Nen won't really go unnoticed for long. I'll quickly check this thing out and continue on my journey. I descended slowly in that crater, keeping my breath as the vacuum I formed around me prevented me from breathing as well. When I eventually reached the bottom, the pull also stopped completely, allowing me to finally release the vacuum I kept around me and take a breath of fresh air. I walked for a bit before seeing a strange structure. A pedestal that had a pair of greaves, or chain armor. Around it were a few more objects, caked in dust. They seemed to be offerings made to something. That grieve's most likely a relic, but that's not what causing this violent pull. Behind the strange altar-looking ruin, there was a gigantic bird of prey. Brown theater covered its body and wings, a beak that looked powerful enough to poke through any defense. Claws that could rip and tear anything within grasp. This is without a doubt, a roc. It doesn't look exactly the same as the one I met before, but its features are still close enough. The air around it seemed to twist uncomfortably. The air is condensed into a whirlpool, constant violent motion, likely meant to keep all predators at bay while the beast hibernates. Now, the beast may be weaker than me as it is now, but it can still kill me if I'm not careful. This is the way things work in this continent. You are never truly safe. The best choice here would be to avoid fighting completely. Besides, I need to start running soon, before more beasts are attracted to my position. This being the territory of a powerful predator won't stop them either. It's like they get consumed by a primal rage whenever they get a whiff of me. I sneakily approached the ancient altar. I made no sound, even slowing down my heartbeat. However, the whirlpool of wind is also covering the altar. I need to somehow extract it without waking up the roc. I am already too close, so I can't create another vacuum. That use of Nen would certainly wake it up. Rather, I guess I can wait a bit. The beasts should already be gunning for this crater. All I need to do is hide around and wait for them to wake up the roc. After that, I can just stealthily steal this thing in a panic. I can't really outfly the roc without using parasitic explosion, so I can't let it notice me. I waited around for exactly 10 minutes. After that, I felt the earth shake as the crater was being swarmed with countless beasts. The surrounding beasts from every forest must have all come here when sensing my aura. And I wasn't the only person to notice the trembling earth. The roc was also stirred awake by this incident. It let off a powerful screech and flew up to meet its violent visitors. It's only acting on base instincts to protect its lair. I swiftly snatched the greaves as the whirlpool let off. I started making my way out of the cavern using the wings of Icarus and staying as close to the walls as possible. As soon as I came outside, I could see the roc in its entirety. The shadow of its wings almost covered the forest in front of it. It started flapping its wings violently. The wind seemed to grow mad, each beat released a tornado that tore through forest and beast alike. The roc was quickly being swarmed by flying beasts from every direction. But that didn't mean anything. The sky darkened and the clouds started forming whirlpools. Lightning danced around the clouds and fell alongside the tornadoes, burning and killing monsters. The lightning took out most of the beasts flying towards the roc. The roc is the master of the sky. Even mindless, it remains one of the most dangerous predators of this continent. Fighting it also won't be of any benefit to me. While the beasts entertain each other, I will silently depart from this situation. The roc is likely not even going to notice the fact that the relic is missing. So there's no danger of it coming after me. I slowly flew off, avoiding the tornadoes and the violent fight happening behind me. After flying for a few hours, I was a good distance away from the fight that was still raging on behind me. I also kind of want to test out this new relic I just got my hands on. I put the nicely decorated steel shin guards on and tried to inject some Nen into them. A powerful stream of air just propelled me into the sky. It was faster than the wings of Icarus, and it also didn't make any sound. I guess I've got myself a new traveling relic, huh? I didn't even test to see the limits of its speed, but I think it can reach the same speeds as my wind aspect Hatsu. And that is quite good. I think I even know what to name them. Windstrider boots, it's just a fitting name. After doing a few flips in the air and getting used to the way this relic allowed me to fly, I started heading for the mountain range. This time, I was above the clouds and going at a much greater speed. I have yet to learn of the conditions for this relic, but I have time to learn about it. And I guess I already did. I can feel my lungs being drained of any oxygen as the propulsion stopped completely. I guess that's how this works, huh? I will have to take breaks from time to time to take a mouthful of air. It's like swimming but in the air. Well, on with my journey. _POV Ashton _ The journey became a lot easier with the Windstrider boots. I can move quietly, without using much aura, and much faster. I have yet to test the limits of the speed I can achieve. There are still some things I can experiment on. Like, what would happen if I was to put as much aura as I can into this relic? Would it burst, or would my speed become much greater for a short burst, until I inevitably run out of oxygen and need to take a deep breath? Whenever I started camping, I would take out Pito and spend some time with her before resetting the barrier and resting. She would usually rest with me. She seems to be pretty happy, but she was a bit unnerved when I first took her out. I guess this place does have a strange feel to it. She's already intelligent enough, she's also learned some basic words. She can point at things and sometimes tell me their names. She also always expects to be patted each time she gets something right. I guess I am spoiling her a bit, but that just means she will be more attached to me later. It's somewhat cathartic, seeing her innocence and happiness after flying over beasts that slaughter each other for no reason whatsoever. They don't even do it for food like you'd think they would. Most of the corpses are just left to rot, or for the trees to consume. A day or two ago I remembered about the members of the expedition team. I wonder if they are still alive. I mean, my appearance might have made things a bit easier for them. A lot of the beasts are out looking for my blood. Their passage should be unhindered for the most part. Now that I think about it, I don't really know why their fixation with me is so great. At first, I was thinking that it was related to the fact that I've traveled this land before for many years. They know my scent and they hate humans. But that can't be the reason, at least not the only one. Their hate towards me in particular is unnatural. Well, even the fact that they feel my Nen is a bit odd. Most of the beasts can't really use Nen, but me flaring up my aura will definitely attract them. It's almost as if they still hold a certain amount of recollection of its existence. Or maybe some of the more sensitive beasts are leading all of the others? No, they are not intelligent enough for that. They always become coordinated when attacking me for some reason, ignoring each other completely and just gunning for me. The incident with the rock was a good example of that. I have no doubt that if my presence woke it up, it would have just ignored all of the beasts trespassing into its territory. I think there's something influencing everything, but I just can't find the opportunity to take a step back and observe the entire table clearly. I simply don't know enough to even make an assumption. Is this related to the eyes in the abyss? But how could it be? That place should be completely sealed off from this world. A completely different pocket of reality where our rules don't even apply. I don't like this. The strange nagging feeling that I am just a small cog in the machinations of a large conspiracy. But I can't do anything about it without learning more. This fire was lit under my feet when I remembered the calamities, but is the answer going to be found in them? Well, I guess I'll have to find out. I'll think more about this after I've finished looking into the calamities. By then, I'll hopefully have more insight. As for now, I am already approaching a steep mountain range. I can't be sure that it's the same as the one the first expedition ran into, but it should be somewhere around this location. Pap. A beast that I've never seen before. Nobody has seen it. If I am to find it, I'll need bait. It's obviously got an attraction to humans, but I don't really have any of them handy, so I guess I'll have to act as the bait. Well, not personally, as I've said, Cell Splitter can create a perfect copy for me, and Pap would be attracted to it too, as it is also human. The only problem is that the clone won't really be hidden from the other beasts in the forest. It will attract them all here. But, as long as Pap takes the bait quickly, I can avoid the incoming swarm. I flew up the mountain, keeping a careful eye towards anything that might pose a danger to me. The mountain itself is somewhat strange, jagged tips and pointed rocks litter it. It seems difficult to climb. Good thing I can fly. There's also the fact that it is lacking any other life forms. I would expect a few species of flying abominations to at least be present. But it's barren. Does that mean this particular mountain houses a powerful predator? Is Pap actually considered one? It is a calamity, and I guess the Hellbell would be considered in one too. Going in order of strength, the Hellbell could count as a powerful predator, but only with its mind-altering powers, which they can't really use properly in a place where everything is already mad and murderous. So they need to rely on their other strengths. One of them alone wouldn't be all that dangerous and would also never be able to mark territory for itself in the Dark Continent. I have no doubt that the den in their territory has quite a few fully grown Hellbells, like the big one I fought alongside the Zoldks. Not much is actually known about the beast. But this should be the mountain, so I guess I should be cautious. Not all of the powerful predators are at the level of the rock, but it's still good to pay attention to my surroundings while on this mountain. Especially since this one might not be sleeping. _POV narration _ Ashton was silently making his way to the top of the steep mountain. However, he failed to notice that something was stalking him throughout his journey up the mountain. Hiding underneath the rocks and in between the cracks in the mountains, a pair of glaring red eyes watched him warily. A grotesque appearance of a gremlin, one small and seemingly harmless one. But it was in fact, Pap, a horrifying abomination that could suck out the life force of other beings and use it to strengthen itself. It let its victims enjoy their last moments, however, sending a special pheromone in their brains that made them oblivious to their quickly shriveling body. It was not a monster that could handle frontal confrontation all that well, but it could sneak around the mountain that was in its territory with ease. Ashton eventually reached the top, or at least a place near the top, where he decided to camp and start preparing his trap. But that was when Pap decided to make its move, a tendril growing out of its mouth and rapidly trying to stab into the old scientist. Instinctually, Ashton tilted his head to the side, as Pap's tendril cut his cheek a bit. He quickly jumped forward and turned to face the beast that had just attempted to sneak attack him. Its tendril moved at an unbelievable speed. It seemed to be just a bit slower than that of the Ant King before his death. The scientist knew he needed to act fast, as more tendrils appeared in Pap's mouth, preparing to rush towards him. Blocking such an attack would be difficult, but redirecting it would be a lot better. Ashton quickly created a wind barrier around himself. It pushed aside all of the approaching tendrils as violent winds pushed forward and cut them a bit. The Pap just screamed a bit. It was loud and extremely annoying to the scientist. But he also knew that something bad was coming. Pap was not exactly a single entity after all. Alerted by that signal, countless tendrils came from all directions, all directed towards Ashton. The monsters remained hidden inside the shadows, only red eyes were visible everywhere. Ashton reacted quickly this time. He created a series of revolving wind barriers around himself. Most of the tendrils got past the first one, but by the fifth, all of them had lost their momentum. Ashton quickly extended his hands to the sides, expanding the sphere as it severed the rocks and cut apart everything in sight. Until, from underneath him, a tendril came rushing out of the ground. The scientist couldn't dodge, he couldn't block. So he was forced to let the attack pass through him, using fleeting existence. The tendril, however, remained in his non-existent body. The beast was intelligent enough to find a flaw in that technique. But it wasn't intelligent enough to realize it was actually a feature. Fleeting existence didn't allow a person to move, but their Nen could. Ashton quickly expanded his Nen and embedded the mountain around him in his parasitic Nen. He quickly detonated it. The monsters didn't even realize what was happening when they were cooked alive by the rising temperature of the rocks around them. The top was vaporized in seconds. Ashton, however, was still unaffected, as he hadn't moved at all. Only the ground underneath him gave way. He felt like a statue, completely immobile, until he no longer could hold it in, letting his heart beat once more and flying himself above the exploded mountaintop. He had been careless, but there wasn't much he could have done in that situation. Now, He needed to find whatever treasure was inside Pap's territory. He instantly used his N, scouting the entire mountaintop. He found a ruined entrance to a cave instantly. The explosion was obviously what had covered up the entrance. He quickly used Wind Aspect to pull all of the rocks out of the entrance, then entered in a hurry. He looked around the place for a bit. He had found what the first expedition was looking for, but he hadn't found anything else that was useful to him. Well, almost. Just as he was about to give up when he heard the beasts cry outside the caves, he found a broken-down altar. It didn't have anything on it, but there was writing on it. Writing that Ashton could definitely decipher if given some time. He quickly ripped out the part of the altar with writing on it and placed it in his void, after which he exploded his way out of the cave. The mountain was already swarming with beasts of every kind, all of them trampling on each other to reach the top faster. Ashton went and grabbed the body of one of the Paps, the most intact one he could find. Only half of its body was burned. He also placed it in his void space. He started flying away from the mountain instantly. He was obviously intercepted by another beast that flew into the sky. The blood condor, a strange bird that seemed to act more like a golem than anything. Its appearance was simply that of a large bird constructed out of a blood-like slimy liquid. It was mostly immune to physical attacks, and it was an annoying opponent. Good thing Ashton knew exactly how to deal with them. He used the air around them to shred them apart and scatter them everywhere. He left while the condors were rebuilding themselves. They didn't have a core, so regular attacks didn't do much of anything to them. The best way to fight them was to escape, which Ashton did. He had managed to lose the swarm of monsters in a day, which was a decent time, as he still had a long way to reach the ruins of the Labyrinth City. Although, his encounter with Pap made him a bit mad, mostly at the fact that he hadn't been able to pinpoint their location at all. That's why he just blew up the entire mountain top. Their stealth was even better than his. Now, he was going to need to take a break in order to decipher the strange writings. _POV Ashton_. I wasn't expecting Pap to be that troublesome. But I guess it is a calamity for a reason. Although I think I'd rate it a bit higher than the Hellbell. I thankfully reacted in time. My senses might have dulled a bit in Lake Mobius, but I guess it's not that bad. Still, I was taken by surprise there, although I guess I was on high alert the entire time. It's not like I jumped out of my skin when I was attacked, I just didn't know what to expect. The compendium doesn't seem to give much information on calamities. Well, it seems to only give me the information I already know. Kind of like how it does the same to the Chimera Ants, which are basically also calamities. But at least I didn't come out of that mess empty-handed. I found exactly what I was looking for in fact. Text, information. Even if it's gibberish, I can understand it. The book that came with the blessings of the older gods seems to be linked to this rock too. The book seems to be an encrypted method of translating the writings into a more common language. This common language is still an old language that the older civilizations of the Dark Continent used. So I guess what I am currently looking into is ancient beyond the civilizations that left these ruins. I just hope it isn't in vain, as I'll have to spend quite a few weeks to make sense of these texts. But, even if this text turns out to be a waste, this isn't exactly the worst way I've spent my time. For now, I will take cover in a cave and set up some defenses. I will spend a few weeks here, so I can also take Pedro out for a breath of fresh air. Cave air is always annoying to get used to, but I am thankfully already accustomed to it. I do like to spend my time in caves, it seems. Phrasing. Pedro also didn't seem to mind living in a cave. She spent the 3 weeks just staring at me and sleeping with me. I was busy deciphering whatever that slab is supposed to say. And, I did succeed. Although the poem left me with a lot more questions than answers. It goes like this, roughly. Translations of ancient texts are rarely 100% accurate. Behind the veil of known reality, the vile gods lie in wait for a weak fool with a brave heart to open up his soul to whispers. They break the mind. They twist the soul. Beware th. The writing is interrupted right at the most important part. I'm not going to lie, this made me smash my table a bit. I even scared Pedo a bit. It took a few head pats to pacify her. But there's not much I can do even if I get mad. The person writing was either interrupted or the writing itself was meant to be unfinished. I am not dull enough to not realize who this writer is referring to. So the ancient civilizations considered the eyes inside the abyss to be vile gods. This in itself is already worth the time I've spent. It means they interacted with our world in the past. This also means I can find even more. Still, a weak fool with a brave heart isn't exactly a good way to describe me. But I was in a weak state when they tried to bend my mind. So I guess it does somewhat make sense. These strange writings are quite specific. But I guess I should tread carefully when dealing with this issue from now on. I don't like this. It feels inadequate. I have much to learn now. I need to look deeply into that Labyrinth City ruin. It's bound to have some information. Pedo. I think I'm done for now. We'll rest a bit and then I'll have to restart my journey. I told the curious Chimera Ant. She had been asking a lot about the things I've been working on. I always told her that I'm just reading an old stone. But she didn't seem to appreciate my honesty, even accusing me of being a liar. Tilda, she said in her regular tired tone. She's been mostly entertaining herself. The most I can do is let her lean on me while studying. Say, what do you wish to eat tonight? I asked with a smile. I obviously brought enough ingredients to feed a village for decades. I can make most types of food and I do not lack any supplies. Pizza ! Tilda. Well, she's not really into fancy foods, but simplicity does have its own pleasant feeling. Sure, let me just cook it up. I took out all of my appliances and got to work. She didn't specify what a type of pizza, but that's just because she has never had a type of pizza she hasn't enjoyed. I finished making our meal as the walls of the cave started shaking. My expression didn't change at all. This is to be expected after all. One of the walls opened up and a strange-looking mole entered the cave. This is part of the species that once built my previous living quarters when I was younger. It has an extremely large furred body. Its eyes were non-existent. It looked like its mouth was kept shut by strange fleshy strips. But it doesn't actually have a mouth. Its nose is likely the most powerful out of any species on this part of the Dark Continent. Thankfully, it's also one of the least aggressive species ever. It was likely attracted here by the smell of food. It's the only reason. I don't really understand how, but these beasts weren't affected by whatever touched the outside. But that may be because they weren't all that intelligent, to begin with. And their bodies aren't really made for combat, they are made for digging. Although they might be stronger than a lot of Nen users. Only beings like this are left unaffected by the strange madness that plagued the continent. Basically, only the weak and unintelligent ones. All of the predators already possessed some intelligence, so they were affected. Beasts like this are already almost extinct. I guess we don't have to worry for now. _POV Ashton_. After spending some more time with Pedo, she entered the void space once more and I restarted my journey. The mole had left after we had finished the food. But it kept returning whenever I made something else. It's quite sad that I couldn't feed it anything, but the beast seemed to just want to smell the food, which I guess provided some satisfaction for it. Now, I have spent a lot of time in this cave already. So I took off with speed, not wanting to waste any more time. The Labyrinth City is my next stop. But Brian is going to be much more dangerous than Pap. At least if I don't prepare for his skill set. If Brian can truly manipulate the flora, then it will be an extremely annoying opponent. I might not even be able to kill it. Of course, I can't be sure until I actually face him. But Pap was not something I expected to be troublesome, and that turned out to be a mistake. I flew for a few weeks without much rest. Only stopping from time to time to recover my stamina. Nothing truly interesting happened in that journey. No other encounter with a legendary beast. Just the constant sound of fights and tearing of flesh from the forests. which is the norm in most of the continent. I then found the ruins of the city. I surveyed them from a distance, not getting too close. The city itself is large. It somehow seems to be eaten up by the flora around it, the trees and roots entering the stone walls and paths. It was built completely of stone. Moss almost covered it entirely. Whatever this place used to be, it is now claimed by nature. I need to be careful. I don't know the extent to which Brian can manipulate his surroundings. But, if an entire army fell to him, then it should be quite great. Well, there were survivors. But they weren't really in any state to be called living. Only 1 out of the 7 survivors managed to recover from his injuries. The rest died. All of them had plants growing out of different parts of their bodies. They had survived to return to Lake Mobius, but then the plants started growing from any injury they might have had. That's how Brian got the title The Botanical Weapon. At least that's what is written down. I can't testify to the authenticity of this information, but I doubt it would differ from the truth that much. Now, I think it's only going to attack me when I step inside the city. But I can't really be sure. So I will fly above it for a while. The flora can't really reach me so easily if I stay in the air. At least in theory. But I am still prepared for a fight to happen at all times. I can't be 100% sure of the situation inside those ruins. The calamity might attack anything in a certain radius. And it seems that I was right to be ready for action. The second I started circling the city and trying to get a closer look, vines and flowers all started rising up to meet me. The budded flowers tried to stab through my body and the vines kept trying to entangle me. It was strange. I can feel no nen coming from them. They aren't being moved by aura, they are just moving. I dodged around in the air for a while, looking down to see a strange purplish figure. It looked to be human, but instead of a head, it had a large sphere on top of its neck. This is no doubt Brian, the guardian of the ancient labyrinthine city. I guess it's there to greet me. The plants aren't exactly moving at unbelievable speeds. It's only about as fast as the hellbells were. So, I can easily maneuver around them. I just need to keep a certain distance and I'll be fine. Then, the budded flowers that were trying to stab me opened up and started releasing a purplish mist in my direction. I pushed the mist away using wind aspect and started cutting and ripping apart all of the vines that came near me. Then, all of the trees around the forest rose up, they all intertwined and started forming a dome-like barrier around the entire city. This level of manipulation was quite staggering. I was also caught inside said barrier. Upon closer inspection, flowers kept sprouting on the dome. They kept spitting out that mist, but this time, it's in an enclosed space. And the attacks increased in both intensity and strength, as the place was also filled with poisonous mists. I created a barrier of air that kept it all away. But this is more of a temporary solution, as the branches and vines were slowly tearing at the barrier. I created more and more barriers and started expanding them, shredding apart most of the vines around me, but the branches were a lot tougher. I could only push them back. I need to quickly take out Brian if I want to actually explore this city. This dome will also be helpful, as the beasts won't be able to swarm the city so easily. But there's another problem. I don't want to ruin the city even further, it would make exploration even harder. So I need to be careful with my attacks. I used the Wind Strider boots to a much greater extent. I was sent flying forwards with a great speed. The air around me parted as I sped towards the ruins of the city. The vines and branches couldn't catch up at all. I spun in the air as I wound up a kick on the guardian of the ruins. But, just as I was about to get closer to him, the roots of trees rose out of the ground and blocked my kick. They immediately entangled my leg as it cracked some of the roots. I used the Wind Strider boots to their fullest as I blew myself backwards with a great gust of wind. The roots were forced to let go of me. But vines were closing in form all around me. I used wind aspect to give myself another moment of rest with a barrier. I needed a breath of fresh air. It also seemed like Brian was stupidly strong while on the ground. Although I can think of a few ways to fight this properly. _POV Ashton_. After getting a breath of clean air, I let go of the barrier and used wind aspect to send myself flying instead of the relic. I dodged the countless roots and vines with relative ease. But, I need to find an opportunity to touch the ground for my plan to work. I plan to use nature resonance to strengthen the earth and stop the roots from coming out around Brian temporarily. But I don't think I'll achieve much if I just keep dodging around. So I instead opted to get further away from the city and using parasitic explosion to clear everything around me. The vines and roots were torn apart by the constant stream of explosions I kept releasing. The heat burned my surroundings as the temperature turned everything around me into a molten red. I used that opportunity to touch the ground with my legs. I spread my hand throughout this half of the living dome prison. It was at least 20 kilometers around me. I embedded my aura into the dirt, turning it black. I instantly started feeling resistance as the roots struggled in the strengthened earth. I acted quickly, dashing towards Brian, always making sure to be in contact with the earth. Brian's head seemed to vibrate violently as the vines underground were energized. The ones above me gained in speed and were starting to multiply even more. I used the earth to form a roof above us. It didn't hold for long, but all I needed was a second. I strengthened my body to inhuman levels as my gloved fist prepared to meet Brian's head. But something stopped me in my tracks. My stomach exploded as roots started growing out of my organs. Spores. Fuck, I forgot about those. It seems Brian is constantly emitting them too. I instantly created a clone and transferred my consciousness to it, recovering instantly and using wind aspect to create a vacuum around my body. I lost all of my momentum and all I could manage was to kick Brian outside of the city. But that was the whole point. Unfortunately, my Nen doesn't seem to stick to this strange being. But its surroundings were filled with it. I couldn't release a large-scale explosion, but smaller ones around its body are possible. I started by exploding its immediate surroundings, but that wasn't enough to kill it, as it was just staggered. This thing is a lot tougher in the body than it should be. My kick didn't do any damage to it either, but I should have expected something like this. The roof above broke as the roots also finally managed to drill their way out of the ground as well. I jumped backwards, hitting the wall of the city with my back. Then I rolled to the side, as the moss itself seemed to want to strangle me to death. Countless vines stabbed into my body as I was forced to make series of clones and transferred my consciousness to the furthest one. The clones quickly charged Brian, but we're all crushed into the ground. I need to retrieve the artifacts on my body quickly. But I don't think these vines will give me a chance. I quickly released a violent tornado around me. The wall of the city was also being affected by it, but I don't care about the walls, I just don't want the buildings to break down further. Brian itself wasn't left unaffected by the tornado. It was pulled into it and sent flying towards the top of his dome. I use the moment when Brian is suspended in the air to make another clone and stick it into the earth using nature resonance, effectively burying it alive for a bit. The roof of this dome is the place where I would hope to have Brian. I quickly used an explosion to send myself flying towards the botanical weapon. The explosion undid the tornado as Brian stopped ascending. The roots were too slow to stop me and the vines were shredded by the wind barrier around my body. I quickly arrived near the dangerous calamity. I caught it in a hold as my body crashed into its own. Slowly, my hands turned red as the temperature around us started burning the vines and roots. I immediately released a powerful explosion, changing my consciousness to the clone I had buried as the ceiling of the dome was burned beyond recognition. The explosion raged on for a while, as I kept sending more and more parasitic Nen through my N. I obviously give up on getting my hands on its body. It's not exactly cooperating with me and it's proved to be a more than dangerous foe. The explosion eventually stopped. I observed the massive cloud of smoke and the hole in the ceiling with curiosity. That should have been enough to kill it, but I guess I can never be sure. A strange purple seed was falling towards the ground from the center of the explosion. It gave me a strange feeling, when using Gil, I could tell that it is alive. So I guess this is Brian's true form then? I guess it's a form of parasitic being that took the body of one of the expedition members? Or maybe it's the body of someone from the older civilization that lived here? Does that mean they were also humans? Well, I will have time to find answers to those questions. I quickly ripped open space and let the seed fall inside. I don't really want to know what happens if it possesses a tree or something. Time inside the void has stopped too, so I don't have to worry about it harming Pito. After I was done with that, I quickly started covering up the hole in the dome. As the beasts were already swarming around the dome and looking for an entry point, I obviously used nature resonance to cover it in darkened earth. Then I hid my presence. It's time to explore this strange city. To see what exactly Brian was guarding here. _POV Ashton_. After I was finished with patching up the dome, I went and grabbed my relics from my first corpse, putting on my rings and then wearing the gauntlet of Nath. I also put my Windstrider boots back on, after which, I stared at the city in the distance. My tornado had damaged a bit of the outer wall, but there wasn't much damage dealt to the houses. I started exploring the city in a hurry, not wanting to dally for too long. This dome may be tougher than the defenses of the Black Whale, but it won't hold forever against a horde of bloodthirsty beasts. I didn't find much in the houses, but I did manage to conclude that a human-like species used to live in them. Most of the appliances seem to be like the ones in Lake Mobius. Tables, chairs, wheelbarrows, everything made mostly of stone. Of course, there's not anything to show how advanced this civilization was. But from what I'm seeing they should have been somewhere in the medieval stages. Well, it looks like they built a medieval city with Bronze Age tools and furniture. I can't even be sure. But it is fascinating, seeing how these people live their lives. It's not like I can recreate how their civilization functioned perfectly from these ruins and broken houses. I explored the entire place for 15 minutes. The city deserved to be called a labyrinth, as it was built to make any invader get lost in dead ends and twisted paths. It didn't bother me all that much, but I can see how this strategy would be useful in an invasion. Although, some of the still intact traps and defenses look a bit odd. It's as if they were preparing for a large invasion right before they went extinct. It's really strange, but they don't look like they were fighting humans at all. The traps are all a bit too strange. A pitfall is usually something for a single target, but most of the pitfalls I found are inexplicably large. It's quite clear that they weren't expecting human invasions when they built this city. The stone used on the houses is also incredibly tough, to the point where I need to put some effort into breaking them. I think regular predators would barely put a scratch on them. How exactly did they build this city? All of the stones are of that toughness. It's strange to think that an undeveloped civilization would have the means to pull something like this off. I ran around for a few more minutes, after which I managed to find what I was looking for. The remains of what seems to be a primitive church. It was in the square in the middle of the large city. It was basically in front of a broken-down statue. Its features were unclear, the plaque with writing on it was scratched and barely understandable. This is the Eternal City. Bow before the king. Oh. That was all I could make up. Their language is still fresh on my mind, so I doubt I made any translation mistake. I also don't think I need to address the irony of the name of this ruined city. It's tragic in its own way. You can tell that the people that wrote this held pride in their achievements and their king. But now it's all washed up in the rivers of history. Not even remembered by the smartest of man. At least I know they were also humans, this statue confirms it. The features might be unclear, but the shape is there. And there aren't really any other species that I know of with that shape. I walked towards the church, its heavy stone doors were shut tightly. I put my hands on them and just pushed. They were at least as heavy as the fourth gate at the Zoldyck family testing gate. Somewhere around 32 tons of stone. But these doors are also nowhere near as large. I walked inside the dusty church. This is one of the few buildings that stand mostly intact. I could see scratches on every wall, It seems like a group of people were desperately trying to get out. To even scratch these walls, they must have been as strong as the Zodiacs. I'm guessing those were the civilians too, since they are usually the ones to hide in churches during attacks. At least that's what I remember from our civilization. Still, there is no trace of any human remains in this place. I guess they all turned to dust in time. In front of me stood a pedestal. Behind it was a large wall filled with writing. I could also see some smaller writings on the sides of the church, but those seemed to be scratched into the walls rather than written with tools. I think I have quite a bit of deciphering to do, but I also don't have time now. I need to copy all of these texts and leave this place. The beasts are already trampling on the dome. It's only a matter of time before they break in and swarm the city. I may be strong, but if I start fighting all of them I might be in even more danger than I was fighting Brian. I wrote down all of the ancient texts and even took pictures of them, just to make sure. Just as I was about to leave I noticed something strange. There were drag marks on the ground near the pedestal. I immediately kicked the pedestal away and revealed a somewhat small hole. It looked like it could barely fit me and it didn't seem to have any stairs or ladder going down, so I guess I'm supposed to jump. Well, not like I can't fly. I jumped down inside the tunnel and took a torch out of my void space. I, fortunately, have enough batteries to last me a lifetime. Now that I think about it, I am a bit of a hoarder. Well, whatever. I looked around a bit and found an altar exactly what I was looking for. It looks just like the one I found at Pap's cave. I was about to just strip it out and put it in my void space. But I noticed something else on top of it. A strange crown. It seemed to be made out of gold, but it was filled with thorns on the inside. Inside it was another small book. The title wrote The Crown of the Martyr. I guess that's the name of the relic. I grabbed it and chucked it into my void space alongside the altar. I can feel the earth shake above me. They clearly broke through the dome and are running around the city. Now I need to make a run for it. _POV Ashton_. Now, to escape from this little predicament of mine. I can't really climb back up through the church, as that place is likely already swarmed. So, I will have to break through the ceiling and fly away as quickly as possible. I put most of my relics in my void space in preparation. I don't want to lose any of them if my current body dies. So I need to be careful. I made a few clones around me. By now, the beasts were getting more violent as they also felt my use of Nen. I used Nature Renaissance to put my clones into the ground. Then I instantly spread my I imbued it with my parasitic explosion Hatsu and blew apart the entire ceiling of the cave, along with the beasts directly above it. Then I used another explosion to send myself flying towards the top of the dome. It seems that the beasts mainly entered through the patched-up roof, so I guess the trees held up properly. The beasts were still completely clogging up the hole they had created, so I won't be able to use it to escape safely. But I can thankfully make another one. I grabbed one of the flying beasts, a strange bat-like creature with fur and a single sharp claw. A monobat, not an explicitly powerful species, but they are usually disease-ridden and quite dangerous because of that. I grabbed it by its wings and injected a large amount of Nen into it. Then I swung it around in the air and threw it towards the roof of the dome, a part that looked intact. It did try to bite me, but it wasn't fast enough. It hit the roof of the dome like a bullet. Then, it exploded into a raging inferno. The fire and impact ruined the roof and I quickly dashed away, leaving mines behind me. A powerful explosion left in pockets of air to detonate my pursuers. I detonated all of them as soon as I was a good enough distance away, killing and stunning most of my aerial pursuers. I was then about to just explode my way to safety, but a large rock came flying towards me. The beasts on the ground using any method they had at hand to bring me down. This was more surprising than it was damaging, so I guess they can think, but they just can't think about anything else other than methods to kill each other. I just used the projectile as a stepping stone to fly myself further away from the swarm of beasts trying their best to kill me. I then quickly took out my Windstrider boots and put them on mid-flight. It wasn't all that difficult. I just needed to slow down a bit, something that allowed the flying beasts to come closer to me. But I instantly created a wind barrier around me and just blew them away with it. Then I quickly wore the ring of the wolf to hide my presence and flew above the clouds. The cold was a bit annoying, but I could bear it without any issue. My pursuers were still hot on my tail, but I will lose them eventually. Time skip 3 weeks. Well, eventually is a bit of a short. It took me around 2 days to get rid of them. Record time too. After getting rid of all of my pursuers, I just found another cave and closed myself inside. Brought out all of my furniture and pedo, and started studying the writings again. Well, there's not much work that I have to do in order to understand the words. But I need to put them together properly, and that can be a little tricky. It took me a while. But I was a lot more relaxed this time too. I just spent a lot more time with pedo. Her speech also slowly improved as I also taught her how to read. She was happy to be reading a few books that I could give her. I did bring quite a few with me in preparation, but I don't really have the best tastes when it comes to this. She found most scientific texts and academic ones to be extremely boring. She could read them, but she didn't want to. She did like the children's fairy tale books that I gave her, so that's nice. Well, on with the texts I found. The writings sculpted onto the wall inside the church were just a sort of prayer. Nothing special, and nothing mentioning any of the older gods. The scratches, however, were a bit more descriptive. Today, the beast attack finally happened. Our defenses quickly fell and a few of us have managed to retreat into the church. We are trying our best to defend the others, but we have too few men. The civilians are in a state of panic. We are soon going to send a squad outside to bring back some supplies to last us a while. That was the first writing. It confirmed my suspicion about the beasts attacking that city. But it doesn't say anything about how the beasts overcame their defenses. They seemed mostly untouched, and the traps weren't ever triggered. The next texts didn't help either. The team never returned. What's worse is that the fools attracted the beasts here. They were expecting me to open the door for them. Did they want to get everyone killed? I don't understand why. Why has this happened? This wall was supposed to stand forever. Has our powerful king betrayed us? Has our liege abandoned his throne? What will become of us? The man that wrote this lost his hope at this point. I guess it didn't take long, but it is understandable. The situation was extremely bleak. They couldn't do anything, they couldn't see anything. They could just hear the beasts trying to pound down the walls of the church. The beasts obviously failed, but the men died nonetheless. Why am I here? It's dark. It's musky. Where is my family? My Miranda, my Louise? What has become of this country? I can't see any hope, I can't see anything. Why is there so much noise? Where is everybody else? Tilda. The writing continued on with useless ramblings. It's obvious that a lot of time passed in between the second and third entry. I can more or less guess what happened in between those walls. They didn't have enough supplies. After all, there is only one thing they can do: eat each other. The captain likely won because he was the strongest. But it's quite obvious he went insane and was in denial about the whole situation. He claimed that human flesh tasted sour in one phrase and that he didn't know where everyone else had disappeared to in the next. Oh well. I still have the altar to decrypt. This one is a bit more complicated. Mainly because it's another poem and they can be interpreted in more ways than one. So the words can get annoying to figure out. Well, better get to it. Pito is still here to keep me entertained anyway.